Oh, thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the July 13th, 2021 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. The commission members are appointed by the Select Board to implement the rules and regulations of the State Wetlands Protection Act and the Milton Town bylaws governing the wetlands. As a matter of formality, we invite everyone to speak, but we do ask that you identify yourself so that the recording can record who you are, and we do welcome comments and questions and suggestions and whatnot. As a matter of formality, we also introduce ourselves. My name is John Kiernan. Steve, I'm just looking at my window here. Can you go?
Sure, I'm Steve Ibis, Conservation Agent.
Arthur?
Arthur Doyle, Member, Conservation Commission.
Wendy? I can't see everybody. There.
Wendy, you're on mute.
We can't hear you, Wendy.
How's that? Thank you. Hi, I'm Wendy Garpo. I'm a commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Ingrid?
Beatty, member of the Conservation Commission.
Good evening, Ingrid. Hans?
Hans Fendlingen, Conservation Commission member.
And Todd, I've lost you.
I'm here, conservation.
Okay. I have to search the puzzle here. I think everybody has been introduced. Jerry Burke was not able to make it tonight. So first on the agenda is the extension order of conditions, the Equity Site 3, Canton Avenue, and this is by NEPRA, who is presenting on behalf of the Neponset Valley Watershed Association.
That's actually Chad Cox of GZA.
Hey, great. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you. Good evening. Yes, my name is Chad Cox. I'm with GZA Geoenvironmental. I'm a civil engineer, and I'm here representing the DCR and its project partner, the Neponset River Watershed Association, regarding the matter of the removal of the Pine Tree Brook Reservoir Dam. And we have two requests that we'd like to put in front of the commission. If you will recall, this project has already been in front of the commission, and an order of conditions has been issued for the removal of this small little dam on this small little brook. The work kind of got stalled out for a little while, and now the Neponset River Watershed Association has partnered with DCR, and the DCR is going to take on the actual physical removal of the structure using contracted forces to do so. So what we would like to do is first request a one-year extension of the order of conditions. The order of conditions has been extended once, and it's good through just at the end of this July. And we'd like to extend that for 1 year. The DCR has funds committed to do this project in the coming this fiscal year, the fiscal year that just started. And so they're ready, willing, and able to take on the project and get it done in a timely way. So we'd like to do that. And then in addition, because the DCR is going to contract this and have to do it through state contractual mechanisms, they asked us, GZA, to put together a small plan set that would allow them to bring on a contractor, provide some plans and specifications, define access and the extent of the work. And so we've done that and submitted those plans to the commission, and we'd like to just present those to the commission and request that the order of conditions be amended to include this it's not an extensive set of plans, but it's a set of plans that defines the work that's to be done and how it would be done under the supervision of the DCR.
And Chad, I'm sharing the screen right now. Can you see that?
Yes, sir, I can.
And is that an appropriate place to start?
Yeah, that's perfect. So the project is fundamentally unchanged since it was first brought before you. These are figures that were developed by the Neponset River Watershed Association. This is the existing structure, and you can see some photos of it. It's really hard to call this a dam. It's more like a speed bump in the stream. And with the boards out, it doesn't impound any water anymore, but it's still a barrier to the natural flow of water and the substructure of the structure, breaks up the natural stream bed and the aquatic substrate. So we'd like to remove that. The one thing that we've done is sort of looked at the structure and decided that in order to take out the basically the bottom base slab, we want to do that while also maintaining the stability of the side walls of the channel that we don't intend on altering. So we're going to ask the contractor to go about 1 foot in from each of the walls inboard into the channel, make a saw cut so that we can leave a little bit of concrete right there in the channel to help stabilize those walls. And then we'll break up the rest of the concrete, take that off-site, lawfully dispose of it, redistribute the sediment that's in the channel to backfill in the hole, and really be done with the project. So the final results of the project are as you've seen before. We're not changing that at all. Really, the what we've added to this plan set are just some discussion about how a contractor might access the site. And if we go, I think, to the next page, the next sheet.
Oops, there we go.
Yeah, precisely. The photograph there with the white line types there just shows that we would have access from the street across the highway on both sides of the stream there. And then we should be able to get in through there with just really light construction equipment on the left side, kind of as you're looking downstream, to help us kind of break up the concrete. One of the challenges that we have at this site is that there are overhead electric lines. So reaching in with equipment from the street or the sidewalk is problematic because we don't want to snag any of those electrical lines. So we'd like to get access from the sides. So we've got a stabilized construction entrance on one side. We've got another one a little bit further along. That comes up and there's just a finger little bit of existing wetlands there. So we'll put some construction matting on that to make sure that we don't mess up anything there as we're temporarily accessing. There are some dead trees, some branches that we would prune, but we would expect to leave all live trees, any substantial live trees in place. Reach in, pull reach in, set our water control first, because we'd like to do this work in the dry. We'd like to do it during the absolute dry season, at which point we think we can either pump the water in the stream around or perhaps even just temporarily get in and do our business. But we really feel like we're probably going to be pumping the water around, and we would do that by isolating the dam area upstream and downstream with a temporary cofferdam consisting of something that's not fill, not loose fill. We would be allowing the contractor to select something like a porta-dam, which is the detail seen down there in the lower left, or a bladder dam, which I actually think would be pretty useful, which is the detail there in the lower right. That's just basically a big rubberized balloon that's filled with water and put across the stream, and it can do a good job of impounding several feet of water. That's really all we need. This is really kind of a fast in, fast out project. So we would do that to do the work in the dry so that we're not generating a lot of sediment that's going to go downstream. We can contain that all within the area of the work upstream of the culvert, get everything put together, pump around the existing stream flow, get our work done, and then reflood the site in a controlled way, remove our water control, and leave the site better than we found it.
Question, this is Ingrid. The photographs of the existing conditions, the one that said the caption or the legend is dam structure taken from the west side. I know that we've seen this site before, and I don't recall that much water going through it. It seemed like it was a whole lot less. Are these pictures taken with the boards in or all the boards out? And what time of year was that?
Yes, ma'am. I think My understanding is that all of the boards were out, and certainly substantially they were out. If there are any left, there's only minor boards left in. And these photos were taken earlier this year in May, I believe.
Okay.
I bet
And
if you took a look at it now, there'd be quite a bit of water going through there.
Right, because of, am I remembering this incorrectly? I remember going, looking at this and it seemed like there was a whole lot less flow.
Even when we did, I think it was late summer.
Yeah, okay, maybe that would certainly explain it.
Yeah, it was quite a hot day.
and we certainly are intending to do the work. What we would like to do is do the work in absolutely the late summer, early fall, when flows are, dead minimum.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking is what's the volume of water going through there at any point in time? Okay, I understand.
In terms of the water control structures, the temporary structures, the porta dam or the bladder, are those the only options that you're giving contractors, or are there other potential water control structures that you might be presented with?
So those are the options that we're going to provide. I guess we would be open to something else, but we would specifically exclude both loose fill and sandbags. If I were a contractor, honestly, I'd want to put super sacks in the channel, because I think that would be absolutely the easiest, but we're going to exclude that and ask for either the bladder dam, the porta dam. I honestly, perhaps somebody could come up with something clever like a steel plate on the downstream side, which might be useful for keeping the backwater out and not be fill and be kind of easy to move in and out. We might be open to that, but we would specifically exclude both loose fill and sandbags.
Okay, perfect.
Chad, I had a question for you. When we first addressed this, I guess it was actually 4 years ago now, one of the questions that came up was, when you remove the boards, what's going to be the impact on the Holland Street side going all the way back to Wallaston Golf Course? Because I know there were some questions about whether or not the ponds on the golf course would be lowered. You know whether or not there was somebody who was going to monitor that, is my memory. And I don't know whether or not it actually did lower the ponds, or if it's had any impact. Are you aware of any impact?
No, sir, I'm not. My understanding is the boards have been out for a substantial period of time. And I'm sorry that I can't specifically talk to whether any monitoring's been done, but to the best of my knowledge, the DCR has not received any complaints about upstream impacts to this time.
All right, and my other question relates to your request for an extension of time, which is not a problem for us, I don't think. It's certainly not a problem for me. But my question is, can you do it in a year? Because sometimes people come in and they ask for 2-year extensions or 3-year extensions, and mine's a practical question. Can you do it within a year?
Yes, sir. I mean, from the construction standpoint, I think we absolutely can. I'm going to ask Mr. Lowell from the DCR to also weigh in on that specific question.
Sure. Thank you very much, Commission. The question would be, I guess, how the weather cooperates towards the end of August. We've had an extremely wet period here, extraordinarily wet for the last 2 weeks. Odds are that things may turn around and we may not have that same pattern continuing, but I can't tell. And to your point, I'd say additional time would certainly allow additional flexibility, but I think given Chad's approach, we do think it's workable and doable within that time frame. It's not an extensive amount of work. It's really only not even a week of work, but we do have to have the good conditions for it. So provided that we're getting most of the summer's rain right now, the conditions could improve for an August or September, but I cannot predict that necessarily, of course. So if it's the Commission's will to try only revisit this once, we would entertain a longer extension of time, but I think what we thought was a reasonable request.
No, we'll respond to your request. I think that's fine. I was just curious as to whether you thought it could be done, and it sounds like the answer is yes. So that's good with us, or certainly good with me. Are there any other questions by commissioners? Are there abutters or members of the public that have a question or would like to make a comment? Hearing none, is there a motion? Well, can you go back? We've got, I guess, two different motions here. We've got two different items on the agenda. So the first one's easy, and that one is whether to extend it for a year. So I'll entertain a motion to extend the order of conditions for 1 year. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I believe that's unanimous. Thank you. And the second on the agenda is the next item, and that's a revision, and that does require 2 votes, actually, because we have to make a determination that the amendment or revision is not a significant revision. And if it's not, then we simply accept that we'd have a second motion to accept the revisions to the order of conditions. If it is a significant or major change, then it would require a second notice of intent to be filed. So the first motion would be as to whether or not these revisions, and I'll have to go back to Chad or perhaps Robert, I'm not sure who would be best to summarize for us what the revised order of conditions would include. I know it involves the removal of the concrete. I do understand that, but I'd like you to summarize it for us if possible.
Chad, if you could go ahead, please, that would be great.
Certainly. So the revised order of condition would permit us to remove the concrete of the existing structure to its full depth within the channel while leaving only a small portion to stabilize the existing channel walls. And the revised order of conditions would permit access as shown on the submitted plan sheets from both sides of the channel in order to execute the work using temporary water control via a porta dam, a bladder dam, or other non-fill, non-sandbag means.
Thank you. And with that explanation and summarization, are there any questions or comments from either abutters or members of the public? Hearing none, and I didn't mean to bypass the commissioner. Are there any commissioners that have a question or a comment? And hearing none.
Is there a water quality cert associated with this?
My understanding is that the order of conditions that the commission will issue will act as the water quality certification for the project.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to deem this to be a not significant change to the order of conditions?
Aye.
Thanks, Todd. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second.
All right, any discussion? And all this means is it's not a significant change and we can move to, in a second motion, to approve the revisions. So the first one is been moved that it's not a significant change. That's been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Second motion that I'd entertain would be to issue a revised order of conditions as best summarized by Mr. Cox. And I'm hoping that Steve took notes on that.
I did.
As you always do. Thank you, Steve. All right, so is there a motion to make that revision to the order of conditions?
So moved.
Thanks, Arthur. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion about the motion that's been seconded? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous again. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and good luck with this, and we look forward to the completion of the project.
Thank you
very much.
commissioners. We appreciate it.
All right, we appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You
Take
too.
care.
Number 3 on the agenda is notice of intent at 24 Wentworth Farm Road. And I believe this is one in which Todd Hamilton will recuse himself. Is that correct, Todd?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. What's the best way? Can we,
Just call me on my phone, John, if you,
all right,
and
thank you.
I'll step back in.
Thanks.
Okay, you all set?
Yep, we're all set to go.
Hi, John. Good evening, everyone. My name is, for the record, Jeff Kane with LAL Engineering Group. I'm representing Jordan Storm for this notice of intent application for 24 Wentworth Farms Road. We're getting to the end of the projects here. This is the last of the 2 lots that we'll be submitting notice of intents for. 24 Wentworth Farm Road is an 1.25 acre lot that's located to the end of Wentworth Farm cul-de-sac. Steve, can you rotate that drawing at all?
No, but I can zoom in.
I think you can rotate in that.
Yeah,
can't you?
I can't, I don't know how to rotate, sorry,
Okay.
in this particular screen.
Yeah, looking right there. Okay.
So I can zoom in. How's that?
Yeah, that's fine.
That help?
So the 24 has a wetland associated with the west and south portions of the parcel, as you can see in the plan here. The existing topography slopes from east to west from the cul-de-sac down to that BVW. And we'd be looking to locate or construct a approximately 4,000 square foot single family home with obviously driveway and on-site Title V compliant septic system. A little bit of numbers here, looking for disturbances. The proposed house, as I mentioned, is about 4,000 square feet. We'd be looking to put in about 8,400 square feet of impervious area over that entire lot. That does equate to about 16% lot coverage, which is significantly less than the zoning allowed 35% maximum. The buffer zone impacts we're looking at here is 15,000 square feet of permanent buffer zone disturbance, 5,000 of that which would be rendered impervious area. All the work that we are proposing would be between the 25 and the 100 foot of the buffer zone. We are obviously respecting the 25 foot no disturb on the parcel. And we are looking to infiltrate the first half-inch of water runoff over the roof into roof drains and into on-site infiltration galleries, and that does equate to the half-inch DEP stormwater quality volume. One thing we would like to point out as well is we have mimicked, to the extent possible, which really has come out to about the same as the initial design we showed on the 2016 notice of intent for the subdivision. This lot was always had some constraints involving with the topography and the way the wetlands sat. So there was only a certain size and shape house and driveway we could really get on there. And if you look back at the 2016 filing and the subdivision itself, you'll see that that area, though the house shape has changed and the septic area has moved a little bit, the entire area of disturbance has really remained the same. So we tried to respect that when we did the project. That said, the performance standards for the state and the town, how we've met those, the state standards, we're not doing any work within the actual BVW itself. We won't be doing any work within an estimated area of rare wildlife, and there'll be no work within an area of critical environmental concern. As far as the town performance standards go, we have, for the first one, met the state performance standards. We are providing erosion and siltation protection during this project duration. There will be no catch basins associated with the single family house. And the resource areas have been flagged, delineated, and just recently renewed. I think within the last few months, we renewed them for the subdivision itself. Some of the mitigation that the project incorporates, as you all know, this is a cluster subdivision. We've centered and isolated all the disturbance areas to one small area and gave over 181,000 square feet to the town as far as in a land conservation trust, which I think is still under almost being approved now. As I mentioned, we are capturing the first half-inch of rainfall. We do reduce yard slopes to minimize the runoff. The homeowners association does provide a low phosphorus fertilizer requirement, and we are stabilizing all disturbed areas on lot with loam and seed to ensure no runoff into the wetlands. So that said, I would entertain any questions you may have.
Jeff, I understand you made reference to the half inch of runoff.
Right.
Caltech chambers you have calculated to absorb that or to collect that, correct?
Right.
What is the, and again, this is sort of a generic question. It's not specific to this particular project, but what have we had over the last week in terms of rain? How does that compare to a half inch? Of
So
runoff?
that, John, the half inch always comes from what the DEP calls the treatment volume. And that's based on the runoff hitting impervious areas, usually a street. And what they say is that first half inch of runoff captures any pollutants and washes them off of that surface and puts them into the storm system. That's the volume they want to treat. So beyond that half inch, you're going to get you probably heard the term first flush. That half inch equates to that first flush of concentrated pollutants that you may get from a impervious area. Beyond that, they're saying that those pollutants have been diluted. So if you're looking at the rainfall we have now, I don't know the totals we've had, but anything beyond the half inch, they really don't consider something that has to be treated, since it's already been, most of those pollutants have been washed into the system already. But since this is the treatment volume, being a single family home, there's no requirement to meet that stormwater volume. We've always put this forward because we wanted something to design too. We wanted to say, hey, we're taking this, one step further. We don't need to do that, but we'd like to at least show that we're trying to, better the situation here, even though we're going to have some impacts.
Understood. My second question is just comes from my ignorance, but I looked at the plan and I'm looking at it now on the screen. And above the leaching field, and I say above, towards the top side of the diagram as depicted, there's a row of like sausage links, but I couldn't find any line that described what it is.
That's the retaining wall that's actually kind of flattens out that upper area right there. So, and again, if you actually look back at the 2016 subdivision, we've always had that retaining wall there. Just the way this lot slopes, we knew it was always going to need one. That area also, per the owner's request, where that septic system is, that's really going to be the area where the kids are going to access. That's the yard for this house. That's the flatter area. So that retaining wall really kind of delineates the usable yard to just the area that meets up against the buffer zone.
So I see the patio. Does the patio go?
The patio stops right where that sausage links, like you're saying, guys. That's the retaining wall. And beyond that retaining wall, you can see that word deck. That's just cantilever deck beyond there. So the structure is back at the retaining wall. That's all just deck above.
And what's underneath it? I mean, what do you have for surface?
That would just be turf. That would be lawn underneath there. So anything that's disturbed, where you can see where the infiltration galleries are and things like that, that would just be sloped back and loam and seeded up to that disturbance limit. So we're about 40 feet or so, a little over 40 feet from the closest from that wall in that area you're looking at to the wetland there.
All right. And in terms of loaming and seeding, is there any restriction that would keep the landscape lawn out of our 25-foot, or what happens at the 25-foot line? And I'll tell you what I'm really concerned with. It would be fertilizer, is whether it's low phosphorus or not in that 25-foot area. So what's the plan, the landscaping plan for that 25-foot area?
Well, the 25-foot, obviously anything beyond the 25-foot in, we're not touching. Obviously, there's a 25-foot no disturb. As we've always done with all the lots here, the limit of disturbance, right where we show that retaining, that erosion control, that's where the limit of the lawn ends. So the planting plan really is to loam and seed and stabilize that area up to the erosion control. And then once it's stabilized, remove that erosion control so it holds in place.
All right. And I don't mean to pick on Wendy and Ingrid, but I defer to you in terms of some of your knowledge of shrubbery. But would it be a good idea to plant shrubs along that line to maintain the demarcation? Do you have a view on that?
I think it's always a great idea. I think that shrubs have the natural ability of absorbing any pollutants much more than lawn does, and also provides natural wildlife habitat and food and all kinds of good things.
I believe, Jordan, you're on the call, right?
That's right.
So do you have any preference as to far as putting shrubs up along that limit there?
No, I mean, I would point out that that area is very wooden to begin with, and so there's a lot of sort of natural foliage and sort of wildlife that comes up to that point. But you know, we can certainly talk about it.
Mhm.
This is Ingrid. What's the exposure? How much light does that area get?
It's way the lot slopes back there. I mean, you're kind of coming down off of Highland. There's not a lot of light in that area.
Pretty shady. That's what I was wondering.
But that said, you know, you've got the house going in, so I think that's going to change a little bit.
Right.
But I mean, you're not going to get full sun there, but you're also you're going to get a mix. You're not going to get full sun, but it's definitely not full shade either.
So there's the north arrow right there. Okay,
Right,
so
and you can
it's
see the
got a
west.
southerly exposure, except for early morning when the house higher in elevation would take care of that.
Because you're at kind of the bottom of a hill there. Obviously, with the wetlands right there.
Right.
So there's not quite the amount of sun you're going to get on a typical southern exposure because you don't have all cleared land behind you. So.
All right, my only reason for bringing it up is that, and this is for the applicant's benefit, Mr. Strom, we sometimes are confronted with landscape lawn creep. It tends to go further and further into the, towards the wetlands and sometimes into the wetlands. And that's why I brought up the question, but I thought that Wendy and Ingrid would have some view. And I didn't mean to exclude Arthur and Hans and Todd as well, but what's your view in terms of, and I'm asking this to the commission, what is your view on planting some shrubs? And whether or not they'd survive is a good point, Ingrid, that you bring up what the exposure is.
Right.
I don't know whether or not they would even survive if we did ask the applicant to plant some shrubs along there, just to maintain that line.
Have we required this for any other?
Yes, we have.
In this specific subdivision.
I don't think in the subdivision,
No.
it was other properties, Hans.
And so how many of the other houses in the subdivision have been constructed already?
One's been fully constructed. There are 1, 2, 3, I believe 4 under construction right now.
Okay.
No,
And
the shrubs haven't been specific. And one thing I will mention, and I am aware of your folks' concern with the creep, as you call it, John. And that's why I want to mention that flat area, usually the creep involves, you know, usable lawn. And talking with the owner, Jordan here, you know, he wanted an area for the kids to play that was flat. The area behind the house isn't really conducive to that. That's why we had that flat area over the septic system, which is a decent size. And we have retaining wall allows that to be a more flat, usable play space. I think the area behind there is just more of a gateway up to the end of the property and less so of an area that's going to be utilized for any type of useful activities. So.
And I would agree with that, Jeff. It drops quite rapidly down to a stone wall. Is that correct, as I remember?
On the backside, there is
That's
a stone
right.
wall, not on that. Yeah, and there's one there as well. Yeah, you're going to see
Right.
that one on the western side, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So that in this one here, and again, this lot itself was really hasn't changed a lot since day one because we knew it had some issues with it. And there was always going to be a flattened area given, just because everyone here is going to want some type of yard to utilize. And that's what that does represent. And like Steve is saying, beyond that point there, it's a little bit steeper. You're probably not even going to be back there. You'll want to keep it mowed just to be neat and trim, but really the usable area is up to that retaining wall only.
All right, what I'm doing is trolling for a consensus here. I don't have a vested interest in this, but we're all experienced in 113 Woodland that we've spent the last 4 or 5 meetings discussing. And that's exactly what happened there, where the lawn creep went beyond where the bushes, in that case, the fence, should have been placed, and it wasn't there and the lawn extended. So that's why I brought it up, but I'm not really vested in it. But I'd like to get a consensus as to whether or not.
I think the orientation here is a bit different so that it does flow more towards that flat area. Also given the retaining wall, I mean, that I don't see it working any other way, but
Okay, I don't see any strong consensus going towards the shrubs, but I'm looking to Wendy and Ingrid to give me your view.
I love the idea of the shrubs, John, and I think you're absolutely right with drawing from the experience with the other property that you mentioned. I don't think that there's any harm in having some kind of delineation just to prevent the lawn creep, possibility of lawn creep.
No, I absolutely agree. And something, native, something like blueberries would, hopefully the homeowner would be amenable to something like that. It's certainly also a perk for kids, kind of a fun thing to do, a low, sort of a low hedge or, intermittent hedge that demarcates the line. Does that make sense?
I would agree entirely, Ingrid.
I don't think the blueberries are gonna last long.
Well, that's the reason I asked the question in terms of exposure as to how much light,
Right.
is there enough light there to sustain something like that?
Yeah, I'd just be more concerned with the deer.
That too.
And birds for the blueberries, frankly.
If they're native wild blueberries, they're less susceptible to
Exactly.
being devastated by deer. And they do relatively well in shady areas at times.
More so than the cultivated, for sure.
Yes.
Now, you can't do anything that's cultivated with the deer in that area.
I will defer to your expertise. I do not, I'm not so learned on the ways of the blueberries, so.
When's in my just ripening now, so I'm thinking about it.
The only other thing that comes to mind is arrowwood.
Exactly. I was just going to suggest it, Arthur.
Is that something we could have put into the order and we could work that out with the agent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, blueberries and or arrowwood and another shrub if you're looking for some variety that grows well in shaded areas. Okay?
And one thing I will say is this lot here, it's obviously, I think it's the largest one in the subdivision. And you can see that boundary to the 25 foot, pretty significant. So the spacing of the plants, I wouldn't want to, put so much financial burden on the applicant just by trying to space these things too close together on such a long run of 25. Is this something we can come up with, or we can, like I said, work with Steve to have something that works what he believes will be sufficient for protection or delineation?
Sure, I think that's fine. And I know somebody mentioned a hedge, and I wasn't even thinking about that because that could be burdensome. But no,
Yeah.
At least my mental concept was that it would just be, interspersed throughout the property. But I do agree that it's a long line,
Mhm.
and I'm not hung up on distance between the shrubs.
Jeff,
I agree.
there's always the boulders on site. There's plenty of those. Just kidding.
Well, they're going to, at least to the arrowwood and the wild blueberry, reproduce.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
Yes.
So we want to get something seeded right that we don't have to fill it in because it's going to fill in naturally.
Right. I would think something that's intermittent and irregular in the line would escape that notion of the hedge, John, and be conducive to the natural terrain behind the line.
Right. That was what I had in mind.
And sweet pepper bush is another one that grows very, very well in shady areas.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fact, so it does grow up without any problem on the upland.
And Jordan, are you okay with that? What we're just talking about?
I think so. I think the blueberry sounds like a really nice idea, and as long as they're sort of intermittent enough that it's not financially burdensome on us. I mean, the project is very expensive as is, we just want to make sure that this is a reasonable thing, but we're happy to do what the commission entails or wants us to do.
Steve, just so that we don't leave it too vague, I agree with the intermittent aspect of this, but is there a way that we could, quantify that in some fashion so that either the landscape architect or the nursery that's planting them or whoever plants them would know? I mean, are we talking 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet? I don't know.
Let's say 15-foot centers or something like that. Does that
I like 20. I know we're talking about, in a second, I'm going to give you a total right here. Hold a second. Hold on, let me see that thing. It's almost 420 feet. So, it's 20 plants at 20 feet. It's a lot.
Depending on the size of the plant.
True, yes,
Exactly.
true. But if you want to live, blueberry, they're a bit of a specialty plant. I mean, they're not something you go to, pick up at Home Depot. Usually that's the ones we're talking about, the native ones. So it is a nursery stock. And as you guys all know, I mean, everything involving housing right now is at a different price point than we were all used to. So assuming we can get them, they're going to be a little more expensive than they used to be.
I'm going to have to defer to others on 20 feet, 15 feet, 25 feet. I'm not hung up on how far apart they are, but I think it could be done in such a way that it beautifies the area, or it protects the resource. I think this is an opportunity to make everybody happy on this one. I just don't have the exact number in mind. If anybody could help me out, 20 feet is okay with me. If somebody said 15, I'd be okay. If somebody said 25, I'd be okay with it. Steve, do you have any experience in terms of the distance apart?
Well, if it's 20 feet apart, you can barely, if indeed the shrubs continue to grow in that area, you won't be able to see them. However, if things are mowed or if things are deer chewed, you'll be able to see them very easily at 20 feet apart. It depends on how well the forest grows back in, John. I think that's really, and in that spot, looking at it recently, it looks like it's a fertilizer, or I should say, it's not a high nutrient area. So things will probably not grow in very fast. That's my guess. Would you agree with that, Jeff?
If it's a native plant and it gets the light it needs, I mean, it will grow in.
Oh yes, the natives will, but not right now. Nothing else will grow besides those plants, those specific plants. So what I'm saying is the deer will be able to find them if they go after them. Deer don't go after arrowwood very much, nor do they go after the sweet pepper bush very much either.
I mean, would it be safe to say it could be a mix of native plants that are approximately 20 feet apart? Would that be safe wording?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
I'd say a maximum spacing of 20 feet.
Sure. That's even better, actually. So if there was a sale on, for example, you could purchase some more.
Okay.
How's that?
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's a consensus here that an order of conditions would be appropriate. I haven't heard any other major concerns in terms of placement or capacity to take the impervious runoff. It seems to respond to all of our our usual needs and concerns. So are there any other suggested changes or conditions before we issue an order of conditions? Are there any abutters or members of the public that have a suggestion or want to ask a question? Hearing none, is there a motion to issue an order of conditions with the special conditions of the plantings along the 25-foot demarcation with a maximum disbursement of 20 feet, and the planting shall be native species of shrubbery now I'm talking about. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yes.
Yes, so moved.
Second,
Second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks all.
nice presentation as usual, Jeff.
Thank you.
Very well done document.
Don't say it too soon, Arthur. He's got another one coming up.
Keep that thought, Arthur, keep it.
I take them one at a time, Steve.
Exactly. Okay, there you go. There you go.
All right, number 4 on the agenda is amendment of order of conditions, 11 Wentworth Farm.
Yep. Let me just jump on that one. 11 Wentworth Farm.
And Jeff, I have the original up, and then I can show the other one as well.
All
Okay.
right, so
Would you like to see any particular one? Original, maybe?
no, I think we just start. Let me just. I mean, I'm sure you guys read the letter, but I'll just give you a quick synopsis. We received an order of conditions for this lot, 11 Wentworth Farm Road, with the intent the owner was going to build this house, a spec house that was going to go up. In the interim, that lot was sold. The new owners want to put up a house that has a slightly different footprint. As we outlined in the letter, the disturbances, everything on the lot, nothing really changes. The house shape got squeezed down and extended forward. If you look at the original to the new one, it's really the same square footage, just a slightly different shape. As far as the jurisdictional area goes, the disturbances are almost the same. It's just the impervious area has gotten a little bit less. Beyond that, everything else is the same. We felt instead of just going and doing this as an as-built, and no one probably ever would have noticed the change in footprint. Since this was a new owner, we wanted to have some type of permit in place that let him say, hey, you have the right to go forward with conservation to do this. So we wanted to put through a request to amend the order of conditions. So we'll have the actual site plan with the actual building footprint on it. And hopefully the commission can see it's a change that doesn't affect the jurisdictional area or have any adverse impacts in regard to how the act protects those areas. So again, that said, if there's any questions, I think Steve said to show the original, which is you're looking at now, and maybe if you could show the.
Actually, this is the new one, isn't it?
That, yes, I'm sorry. That
Yes, it is.
the new one. Yeah. So you can see that highlighted area. If you could see, do you see that right there?
Right there.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, I'll zoom in on it. Yep, I'll zoom in on it a little bit more.
This is the concrete patio area.
Yeah. That is the. Is that the new one?
I had thought it was, and I have just lost my place on the screen. I thought I had another one up called 4A. Let me go back to it and see
You
if I
scroll down, I'll see the date in that drawing.
On the original plan, the concrete patio was much larger.
Yeah, there you go. That's the
the
original.
original. Okay. So you can see it's much larger.
Yeah.
Okay.
The original was larger, and the house footprint here was longer, a little
Right.
bit narrower, so to speak. And then on the proposed one, you'll see it's not quite as long, but it's a little fatter. And the concrete patio actually gets a little bit smaller.
Right. Oops. And let me go back.
This would be an issue that would require 2 votes as well. One as to whether or not it's a significant change. If it is, then it would require another notice of intent. If it is not, then we could then consider whether or not we would approve the revisions. And it seems to me that you've reduced the impervious surface, correct?
Yes, that's right, John.
By about 200 square feet.
About 200, yes.
So that's.
And it also looks like you've taken a piece of the structure actually out of the buffer.
Yeah, yeah, just a little bit. Like I said, that impervious does change, be it roof or concrete. So
So I don't see this as a significant change.
Nor do I, but I don't know whether or not anybody else does.
Not here.
Any questions from commissioners? Arthur, did you have a question?
No, I was just saying I agree with Hans.
Okay, all right. Are there abutters or members of the public that have a question or wish to make a statement? Hearing none, is there a motion to, well, remember, we've got two motions. So the first one would be a motion that this would be deemed to be a not significant revision.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Wendy. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye, which means that it would be not
Aye.
significant change. All right.
Aye.
The second, I think that was a unanimous vote. And then the next vote would be whether or not to adopt the revision as the applicant has requested. Is there a motion to accept these revisions?
So moved.
Thanks, Arthur. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Hans. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Everybody, is Todd still on? I can't see him. Oh, I'm sorry. He's recused himself from this. I apologize. I just saw his name, but I couldn't see him. That's why. All right, so that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
thank
Great.
you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. All right,
Yep.
But wait, there's more.
all right. Next on the agenda is number 5, request for certificate of compliance at 52 Ford Branch Road.
Right.
But, before you start on that, let me just reach out for Todd if I can.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back. There you are.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. 52 Ford Ranch Road. Is that Jeff? We've got you again?
Yeah, that's me again, John. This one's pretty much straightforward. We had a septic system repair at 52 Ford Ranch. I don't know if you remember that walkthrough. Real
Yeah.
tight site behind the house, right up against the wetlands. Failed septic system. We put in a new, what they call alternative technology septic system, supposed to provide a advanced treatment of that effluent being that close to the wetland. At this point, we're just looking for a certificate of compliance. There was no new disturbance areas, just a regrading of the lawn that was already there, replacement of the system. And we did place, as you'll notice on the plan, there was some request, kind of harking back to what we just talked about, to put some shrubbery along the edge of that wetland. And those were all put in, pretty much grouped as they see on the drawing right here. The landscaper just kind of followed what was there, put them in the same little groupings. And so we're just looking to get the certificate of compliance and close out the project.
Jeff, quick question. There are some beautiful old trees along that driveway that there was some talk of trying to save. Were you able to save any of those?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One came down. So
The one closest to the house?
it was actually, no, I think it was between, there was one before the house and then just one off the driveway, just to allow access between them. And, the crowns of those trees are almost touching anyway, so maybe it'll help them spread out a little bit. But no, most of them were retained.
No, that's good news.
Yeah. Yeah, those were nice trees.
All right, and have they, how long have they been in the ground? The shrubbery I'm referring to, Jeff.
It was this spring, John, was that? Let me see.
I think they put him in last
That's what I'm
year.
just trying to remember, Todd. Yeah, if it was a spring or we went out there in November. I get this just as-built are getting a little bit running together. So right up there, Steve, there's a as-built inspections. If you go up there and you'll see a date.
Okay, hang on a sec.
The grass was in last fall.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
I drove by about 3 weeks ago and it really looked good.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I think they were probably put in, and we inspected them in October. And it was probably put in like September or August when they were actually put in.
No, it looked good. It looked very good.
Yeah, it's so lush back there. It's so close to the wetlands. I won't call it a river because we never determined what it was. But it's so close to that. It just it's a great spot for growing, and they're doing great. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, and for the record, we do have the certification that the work was completed in substantial compliance with the plans, which is critical for us. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Are there any comments or questions from abutters or members of the public? Hearing none, is there a motion to issue a certificate of compliance?
I'll move to issue the certificate of compliance.
Thank you, Arthur.
I'll second it.
All right, thank you very much. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
All right, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time as always. Take care.
Oh, good, thanks. Take care.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay,
All right, next on the agenda is number 6, and that is notice of intent 101 Neponset Valley Parkway.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me tonight?
Yes, thank you. Good evening.
How are we? Do you want me to give you an intro or do you guys got to start it off?
No, if you could give us an intro, that'd be great.
Sure, awesome. For the record, my name is Peter Lyons with Collins Civil Engineering Group. I'm on tonight with the property owner, Mr. Niels Krejci, regarding a driveway relocation project. I believe most of the commission is familiar with the project. We walked it maybe a month or two ago. The main purpose of the project is to eliminate the existing driveway that occurs at the intersection of Neponset Valley Parkway and Blue Hill Avenue. I think anyone who's been there will agree that it's a very dangerous intersection for, you know, not only whoever's at the house, but whoever's trying to navigate the intersection. You know, there's very commonly traffic jams there. So it's a major safety concern. So that's our basis for this project. So what we're contending with is sort of a wetland created by the drainage system of the Neponset Valley Parkway. It's pretty much intercepting the groundwater and running it off towards the, what is that? Towards the north, I guess, which would be to the right on this page.
to the right would be west, I think, just a guess, but let's take a look. To the north, you're right. Here we go.
Okay.
Peter, you're right.
So, yeah, so obviously it's not ideal from a wetland conservation perspective, but, you know, alternatives analysis really don't exist. There's not enough room to do it on the Blue Hill Ave side of the house. And, you know, we did seek the neighbor's request as far as a common access situation from the driveway to the north, the direct abutter. That request was denied. So we need to keep this on the property, and the only way to realistically do it is to cross this wetland, the green circle you see on the plan here. So basically we would be applying for a curb cut permit through DCR, which is in the process as far as relocating the curb cut. And then our project would be some regrading and elimination of a few trees within that wetland area to install a 3-to-1 sloped driveway crossing with a PVC, I think it's PVC, a pipe underneath. There's pretty minimal flow through this wetland, and it's just kind of stagnant water all year. So we've proposed a couple of check dams upstream and downstream of the new work, just to catch any sediment and try to slow things down a little bit before it enters the existing drainway. We show erosion control around the entire proposed project, down gradient of the work. That starts at the property line and then wraps up around the proposed driveway. So if we could scroll up on the page, I'll talk quickly about this first area here. You see the green, that's the existing wetland line. We're proposing some mitigation to it's approximately a 10-foot strip off of the existing wetland line. And that's going to be an enhanced area with some shrubs and bushes. And then a little further to the top of the page, there's kind of a triangle area that is a historic wetland that had been mowed over time. So what we're looking to do here is just to kind of re-isolate that. This was mowed over by the previous owner. So when we did the site walk, it was pretty flat and recently mowed, but has since been kind of allowed to reestablish the native vegetation. So our proposal would be to kind of reclaim that wetland area with either a fence or, if possible, a stone barrier, and then provide a bunch of plantings to increase the habitat and the wetland, the resource value in that area. No work's being done in this area other than the wetland enhancements itself. Most of the project falls outside of the, what's that here? I think that's our 25. I think that's a 25-foot buffer to the wetlands. So most of the project falls outside of that, with the exception of the crossing itself up front. That's basically what we got. I guess I'll take any questions from the commission.
What is the ratio of replicated wetlands? That is what you're removing on the crossing to get to Neponset Valley Parkway, and how much is being lost and how much is being gained?
And just to add on to that, how much is being created, how much is being restored of that? So which
Correct.
calculation is a restoration? What calculation is new wetlands relative to the impact?
Sure. Okay. So if we looked over the hatched area of the existing driveway, that is a 2,300 square foot area, and that is, let me just try to find these numbers. And then the proposed area we were able to match as a 1-to-1. So as far as impervious surfaces, it's going to be a no net increase. And then the buffer zone, the restoration area to the side of the project, that's a proposed 1,500 square foot restoration to mitigate the 2,000 square feet that we're working within the 50-foot buffer. And lastly, it's a 2,000 square foot proposed, what we're calling a habitat improvement area. That's that triangle in the back corner of the yard. So that's 2,000 square feet that was a wetland, was kind of overtaken by lawn, and now we're going to be allowing it to revegetate as a wetland and enhancing the vegetation at the same time. I think those were some of the answers you were looking for. So if there's anything else specific, or if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm actually stumped because I've never been confronted, and we always look for at least a 1-to-1 replication. So if we're losing 2,300 square feet, we'd be looking for 2,300. But I confess, I don't think I've had one in which we've got 1,500 in terms of replication and 2,000 in restored or enhanced. I mean, I'm presuming it's currently hydric soils there. And I don't know, Steve, have you had, or anybody else, had experience in this? I've never experimented that actually.
Which area are you talking about, John? I'm sorry, I've lost these. This is hydric soils without any problem out in here. But my guess is that this may not be hydric soils right in
Correct,
here.
but that's that's my question, because I've never been confronted with that area that you just pointed, that 10-foot strip,
Yes,
1,500 square feet, and yet we're losing 2,300 square feet. And I've never had a situation where we've required replication for less than the amount lost. But I
Right.
recognize that he's talking about, enhancing that which is already technically wetlands.
So maybe I can try to clear that up. I mean,
and I don't think there's a replication here involved with this area because these aren't wetland plants that are going in. Is that correct, Peter?
that's correct. On the plant schedule, we have a wetland species for the triangle portion,
Yes.
and the strip is an upland planting consisting of arborvitae, inkberry, and an upland meadow, grass mix. So that's an upland planting
a
buffer
buffer.
zone improvement.
That's
Yes.
just landscaping.
Yeah. Yep.
That's landscaping. That's not buffer zone mitigation, or that's a landscape plan.
I'm not sure we've got the discretion. I mean, that would be a zero creation of wetlands. We lose 2,300 square feet and we wouldn't create anything. Wow. Can I ask you a question, Peter?
John,
There was a
question?
section when we were standing around talking in the driveway. There was a section, it was just kind of sitting there all by itself that was wet. Or at least it had been a former, I think you called it a fire pond, that had become wet over the last, whatever, 100 years or so.
Sure. Yeah, there was a historic fire pond right around where we're circling on the plan. That has
Where, in terms of, actually creating wetlands?
it's an option, or we could, work to regrade that 10-foot strip, it's an upland improvement. I mean, we could, rather than creating a new wetland, a new isolated feature, it may be more beneficial to do some replication along flags. They kind of change B4 through C7 along that strip. So, rather than keeping those grades the same, we could take out a foot of soil, get down to a hydric condition and, do some wetland stuff down there.
Peter, that sounds to me like the right way to do things. However, remember, you'll need to get down to that foot of soil and you can only include the bottom, not bottom of toe of slope, okay? So you'd need to excavate starting back 3 feet further back. And so you'll be very close to your new proposed driveway right here. So you may need to, shift or make this corner more of a corner, with a higher angle here.
Yep.
I'm looking at this. Okay, again, you can only count from the toe of slope into the wetland.
Understood.
Okay, sure. You get it. I understand.
Question?
I don't think we have any discretion under the Wetlands Protection Act in terms of replication. We may have some discretion in what the ratio is, but I don't think we can just say, no, you don't have to replace any of it.
Right. I agree with that, John.
I'm just looking at the chart, seeing if there's any way to be creative as to where you could put it. Is there any way, I'm just looking at that, as you called it, like a triangle section, that much of it is already wet. Could you expand that? As I look at the chart, both to the right and to the left, towards that yellow property line, I mean, could you create
this is quite a bit of a slope here, John.
It is, okay.
This is a slope, but no problem in expanding this out a little higher. Maybe even moving the shed and bringing this right over, straight over to the corner or something. you
Yeah,
know?
that area looks like it would make sense. And you wouldn't have to do I bet you could get 2,300 square feet there if you connected the green line or the triangle, sort of the bottom side of the triangle. I know it's not exactly a triangle, but that area right there, you connect that, if you just get a draw laterally, you could pick up a lot of space, square footage there.
Somewhere between C6 and C10.
Yeah, I can't see yes.
There's C6, and yes, exactly. That's correct. C10 to C6. That's what. There's C6, there's C10. I agree. And then excavate here as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you'd have the direct hydrological connection to the existing wetlands.
Exactly, which is another one of the requirements, really,
Yes.
under the act.
The other thing to consider is that there may be an opportunity on the backside at C12, C13, which wouldn't expand within the, towards the house, but on the backside there, since, I mean, you do have wets showing up at 118. So that piece in the corner up to the property line, you might also be able to get some square footage out of that, which wouldn't really impede the use of the house as much. So if you're
What
looking
about the
for
slope
a
there?
combination,
Isn't that a slope?
Yes, it is.
it is, but the entire wetland's on a slope.
That's correct. That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
It breaks out. It breaks out there. Yep. Right at about 117 and a little higher. Yep.
Well, I don't know, just brainstorming here. It looks like it's doable.
Well, you have to get the hydrology to cooperate.
Exactly.
But that whole connection between C6 and C12 or C10 might work.
Yeah.
All right, well, again, it's my view that we don't really have the discretion that you're looking for unless we get some kind of replication and creation of new wetlands. But we support, I support the project. I know that the driveway in its current location looks like a disaster waiting to happen. So we'll continue to work with you. But I think you've got to put it into an area where we can exercise that discretion to support the plan.
Sure, I understand. So just to verify a couple numbers before we go on. Now, I'm just running over some new numbers, and because we're getting rid of the old driveway, we're ending up with a net increase of about 1,500 square feet of impervious area. So are we more concerned with the area change on the driveway, or am I looking to replicate strictly the wetlands that are being altered?
Oh, what I was referring to was the limited project aspect of it, where you've got to replicate as long as it's less than 5,000 square feet, you can consider this a limited project, but you do have to replace the wetlands. So I was not looking at the impervious surface net increase. I was looking at the
I don't know if DEP would consider this a limited project.
What's that?
I don't know if DEP would consider this a limited project.
I think it really might be.
Why wouldn't it be? You're crossing a
It's under 5,000 square feet.
Right.
Right.
But
you're crossing the wetland.
But there's existing access, so
Limited project does require alternatives analysis. However, if the alternative is a less safe driveway entrance, I think DEP would go for it. There's obviously public safety involved here, Hans.
Sure, and I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm just questioning whether it specifically qualifies under the limited project. But if it's under 5,000, that's fine. It's just a matter of, I think, trying to find a way to replicate the wetland impact itself in a way that'll pass muster.
Okay, so we have about 1,000 square feet of wetland impact, including the driveway and the extents of the grading. So we're looking to, if the commission approves a 1-to-1 replacement replication ratio, have we talked any replication ratio numbers? Are we doing 1-to-1, or what would the commission like to see for this project?
Well, my view is that would be the minimum that we would require. It would be 1-to-1.
Okay,
And, you know, I think,
With respect to the larger impervious surface, you can address that. I mean, if there's a runoff issue, you can use tech chambers to slow it down somewhere. That, to me, that's a completely different issue. I'm hung up on the wetlands that are being lost. And if it's not 2,300 that we're losing, if it's 1,000, then I think it makes it even more doable.
Yes, agreed. So that's Peter, that's the that should be a focus in going back and doing the redesign.
okay.
Okay, in my opinion, just in my opinion, just a
Oh.
suggestion.
Steve,
Yes,
right along where he wants to put the proposed pipe and driveway across,
yes.
why couldn't, where it says lawn, replicate right there, right against it?
He'd have to go down quite a bit in elevation. He'd have to take a lot of fill out of
yeah,
there.
that's a lot.
Okay, so every foot you go down, you've got to go 4 feet in the other, or 3 feet in the other direction.
But up further behind the house is higher than there.
Yes, it is. That's why I would never go here. I would
Yeah,
never.
where I
would
was
not
just
go there.
talking would be the easiest, replicate right against it. Take the lawn out and put it right there.
Yeah, well, that's a possibility.
The other consideration that needs to be accounted for is the hydrology. So you're talking about the likelihood of success.
Right.
And so in terms of creating a wetland, creating new wetland, you want to try and attach it to a larger wetland system. Try to expand the isolated wetland, I think, would be a bit more of a challenge.
Yeah, connecting it, I think we're better off.
Better off how?
Well, it's better off down at the lower point than it is up at the higher point in the backyard or the side yard.
As long as you have got intersect the hydrology, okay, that's the issue, Todd, right there. See, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet at least that you've got to go and actually address there. Going down 6 feet and at a 3-to-1, you've got to be 18 feet over here. How wide is
the further you go back, the higher it gets.
That's right. That's right. So, you might have to go way over here into the lawn. This is 25 feet. Let's see, what is that? This line right here is 25 feet from here, right? So you might be taking up most of this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you took that out, or if you went into the old driveway where it's paved now and take some of that out.
Right.
Can I just speak to that quickly? I agree. I think that area is really just too much slope to work with, and it's relatively, it's stable already, and it's a big slope to go tearing up. The 10-foot strip where we're talking about putting some plantings, that's 1,300, which is already greater than our 1,000 square foot of wetland encroachment. So I think if we kind of circle back to that, that's going to be a much easier construction and a much better likelihood of success in that area, because we're not stripping out 6 feet of material. We're taking out a foot or two, and we'll easily be able to get down. I mean, the groundwater is not level. It's about 12 to 18 inches down on the whole site. So just because it's uphill, I mean, you see to the west here that the wetlands creep right up the contours. So we're not going to have to do too much in that area, to make it a viable wetland area. So I think that should be the focus of the replication area. And I really think we should leave as much of that drainage ditch itself alone, you know, we're already going to be impeding it with the driveway crossing. I don't feel it's appropriate to rip up the vegetation that's currently stabilized and already established there. If the commission has any insight on that.
Well, my reaction is it sounds reasonable. I mean, you're just extending the wetland line out by, what is it, 10 feet? And if you can make your 1,000 feet there or 1,300 feet there, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, we should, you know, be able to meet, you know, even 150%. I think is very doable. We don't really want to move the shed or encroach too much into the lawn, but I don't see why we couldn't bring the wetland right up to the back of the shed almost, and you know, gain ourselves some extra space there. So I think that's the way that we would like to proceed.
This makes much sense to me because I've seen instances before where when you have something of this nature, not exactly the same, the wetland is ultimately going to creep anyhow. There's going to be erosion over time, and the wetland force is going to be stronger than what gets planted.
So you're agreeing, Arthur, that strip along the current wetland line makes sense.
Yeah, I think this is an excellent solution.
So
We have no guarantee that shrubbery placed there isn't going to get root rot from subsurface soil water in the wetland as it moves. These are very, very organic entities.
And I agree, Arthur. I think that's probably the best option for solution here.
Oh, Peter came up with it, I think.
Yep.
any reaction to that, Hans?
So what we'd be looking for in a revised plan is something that would show the grading, the soil type, the enhancement soil, and then also a revised plant schedule that would include hydrophytes and seeding through there.
Okay, do we have a second to take a look at the proposed wetland plantings and basically what we're proposing in that triangle piece, we would probably use right up through the strip. So if the commission's okay with those, we'd like to stick with those through the project.
It was these two species here, the arrowwood and the blueberry. I would put a couple more species in there. I would put winterberry, perhaps, common winterberry.
What's currently out there?
More arrowwood, is that correct? As I remember.
I'm always a fan of whatever's happily thriving there now. Is
Sure.
probably when you add it, it'll probably be happy as well.
Right, right. I don't remember. Do you remember, Peter?
I don't, honestly. I've been at 200 places since then.
Right.
I do not recall.
Yeah.
I think it's in the letter of September 27th, 2017. Gives a list of what's there. One of the last things in the packet.
Okay. And let us know, Ingrid.
So looks like red maple, white oak, white pine, spice bush, honeysuckle, buckthorn, high bush blueberry, bittersweet.
So so far, the one thing you've said is it's a wetland plant is spice bush, northern spice bush.
Yep.
Yep.
And then there's some things that we don't want there, like poison ivy and purple loosestrife.
And the bittersweet.
Right, exactly.
Poison ivy is a native. It has high wildlife value, I must remind you.
That's right.
So spice bush is a good addition, really.
Okay.
Now, I know I'm putting time pressure on you, but later on tonight, I'm going to request that we have a site walk this Saturday. And do you think you could revise your plan that fast? Because we're going to have a public meeting on Saturday. If you could do it that fast, we could respond that fast.
Okay, you would need the plans prior to Saturday, or could we bring copies of the plans to the site walk?
It's actually okay with me if you bring them to the sidewalk, because I know that I get it. There is pretty significant time pressure on you. I just don't want to slow you down because I know the construction schedule and the planning season are going to be on us pretty quickly. So I'm just trying to, move the process because I think I'm sensing a consensus here that this would work. And if it will work and if there is support for it, then there's no reason to slow you down.
Okay, I mean, we could definitely make those revisions before then.
The
We can-
planting can't occur until the fall. I mean, it's too hot.
Sure, I mean, I don't think it's gonna happen right away anyways, but,
Well, if you can wait till August, I was trying to help you, not.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to put any speed pressure on you. I just didn't want to slow down if you already had a construction schedule in mind. But if you can get the plans to us early, and we could continue this until August, I think you've got a sense of what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think we would prefer to make the revisions, and we can probably get them into the town hall, by the end of the week. And as a backup, I can print out extra copies for a Saturday site walk. And the project should be being done in the fall, so getting the early approval isn't necessarily a bad thing. So yeah, we would like to shoot for that. We could make the revisions pretty quick.
I'll be out in the field in Milton tomorrow, Peter. I'd be happy to volunteer to go over to that location and see what else is growing, and maybe give let me think. Is it Lorraine in the office now?
Yep.
A list of plants that I found growing.
That would be fine. Yep.
Well, let me take kind of a straw poll here because I said something that I had not talked to everybody else about, but we've got a couple of other things that will probably require a site walk, and I was hoping to do it this Saturday. Can I get like a straw poll of who will be available Saturday? I know some people are.
Out
Steve,
of town, John.
okay. Who else?
I'm not.
I'm not. I gotta work Saturday.
Okay, so that's Todd, Ingrid, and Hans. You said no?
Correct.
I'm available. I am.
Okay, I don't want the lack of people being there to impact a vote, but I think there's a general consensus that people would approve it as we've discussed. But that it would give us a quorum if, and Arthur, you're available, correct?
Correct.
So that's 1, 2, Wendy is 3.
Need one more person.
Yeah,
Well, since Jerry's not here tonight, we have to put it on him, right?
we do.
Just kidding.
We do. So Ingrid cannot make it, Hans cannot make it, and Todd cannot make it. Well, we may get stuck, Peter, on this, but if so, we could certainly entertain this at our August meeting. And if you think that, if the contractors aren't lined up yet anyway, then maybe that's not going to slow you down.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, we do still have to get the curb cut permitting in place, so that's probably going to be a couple weeks, I would expect anyway. So
just out of curiosity, do they allow you to move the curb cut, or do they give you a second curb cut?
I do not know that answer yet. We're requesting a relocation of the driveway. So I guess we'll wait back to hear from them to see how they handle it. I mean, if we're gonna be, required to put up new curbing in the existing location, or if that's just kind of gonna be abandoned in place. We haven't really buttoned down those details yet.
All right. Well, mine was just curiosity. I don't think it impacts us necessarily.
Well,
All right.
it does to an extent, given that the pavement that to be removed is in the buffer. So,
Right.
Yeah, I think, the pavement's gonna be removed regardless. It's a matter of, are we gonna be sealing the curb back up? Or is the curbing, gonna come down to a flat spot? That's what's in question still at this time.
All right, well, right now, we don't have a quorum for Saturday, which may impact some of the other applicants tonight as well. So for planning purposes, let me suggest this, that we continue, and we need your assent to do this, but let me suggest we continue this until August. And if you could come back with revised plans consistent with what we've discussed tonight, I think we can probably make some progress at our August meeting.
That would be the 10th, John, 10th of August.
Okay.
That's if Jerry is not available for Saturday, correct, John?
That's correct. The problem that we've got, though, is that we have to get the notice in tomorrow. for
Right.
Public notice,
Yep.
and so we're out of time.
Do you want me to call him first? Let's see what my calendar's like.
I'm already dialing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We could just take a brief moment. Hey, Jerry, sorry to bother you. We're in the middle of a Concom meeting, and I'm wondering, are you available for a site walk on Saturday morning, this Saturday morning? Without you, we don't have a quorum, and with you, we do have a quorum. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay, I'll call you back. Great, thanks, Jerry. Bye. Thanks, bye. Okay, he is available, so we will have a quorum, so we can do this. If you can get it into us as soon as you can. If you get it to us by Friday, that's great. If not, then we'll see you Saturday morning.
Okay, sure, that works.
At 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock this Saturday, okay?
Great.
And if something comes up, we'd be notified if that's not gonna happen.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I just speak quickly to the time? I'm sorry, Ned Corcoran.
Yeah.
I know you and I talked about the possibility of site walk for Highland Street.
Yes,
We had talked about 9 o'clock,
correct.
and we put 9 o'clock at Highland Street on with the planning board. There are two members of the planning board that'll be there on Saturday as well. So I don't know whether 9 o'clock with it.
No, there's no magic. Peter, if you can adjust your schedule, we might be better off at 10 o'clock at your location.
Okay.
If that's acceptable.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Ned, for bringing that to our attention.
Sure.
All right, so is that okay, Peter? We'll be there at 10?
That's fine.
Perfect. All right, good. Thank you very much.
All right, anything else from me, or we're all set for tonight?
We're all set. Thanks, Peter.
All right, thank you, take care.
Thanks, Peter.
Now we have a request for determination of applicability, 107 through 111 Highland Street. And then I guess that is abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, 107, 111 Highland Street. So at some point, they're gonna get joined, I think.
Well, perhaps. Shall I begin or further introductory comments?
And what do we have on the screen, Steve? Is that,
That's the request for determination.
okay, all right, so
Okay.
sure, we should take them as a matter of formality. The first one on the agenda is request for determination of applicability, 107, 111 Highland Street. So by all means, proceed.
Okay, my name is Paul Avery with Oak Consulting Group on behalf of Northbridge. And what we have here on the screen is a plan that shows that we would like to excavate a series of test pits for the purpose of looking at soil conditions and depth of groundwater in support of designing stormwater best management practices for an emerging project on this property. The locations are shown with the red squares here. A couple of them are right. The first pair is right along Highland Avenue. We move inward from there. None of the test pit locations is within the 25-foot no disturbance zone, but almost all of them are within the 100-foot buffer zone. And thus, we are before you with a request for determination of applicability. Most of this, the site is currently developed. There is a house in the garage. We would access the site through the driveway to 111 Highland Street. In the woods there's not much understory, so we should be able to move freely through the woods here, with these test pits, test pit 7 at the top of the screen, test pit 6 below it, and then also 2 and 3 in close proximity to the house. There are 2 that are proposed that are on the opposite side of the intermittent stream, also in an upland area, but there's no way of getting there without crossing the wetland area. We did a site walk last week with Steve and have a minor modification to this plan, and would like to, instead of having the crossing where it's shown, a much more natural place is to do it right here, which is right at the end of where the intermittent stream ends, and it's sort of the path of least resistance and the easiest place to do it. Looked at it with Steve, and there seemed to be a consensus that that was the best way to do it. We're happy to discuss putting down mats or other measures that might be required here in order to get access across the wetlands. I did talk to the backhoe operator that we have, and he said he didn't have mats, but would be willing to put down planks or something to that effect. And obviously we would restore the area of any disturbance as we worked our way back out. Test pits will be backfilled and restored upon the completion of work. And that is the extent of what we're proposing with this application.
Paul, you forgot to mention the other 2, the 4 series of test pits here. They're also across the stream, so you get to them across.
Right, that's the purpose of crossing over at the end of the intermittent is to get to those. That's
this series here, and this series. This is the 4 series, and this is the 5 series.
right.
So
So
basically two series. Yes.
so we have to come through here to get to these pits and these pits.
Exactly.
So what I was talking about before was how we do the crossing to get to those 2.
Right. And we looked at a site that was where we had very small bank in the stream and a very narrow stream itself, and frankly, a very narrow BVW. I believe the blue line is the BVW, so you may be a little bit incorrect. I think we were on this side of the building, so it might have been closer to here, Paul.
Well, it was right at where the intermittent stream ends. It isn't shown on this particular plan, but there is a manhole structure.
Oh, yes.
Right here.
Okay.
At the end of the intermittent stream. And, so that's what we look at. I actually have a photograph on it I could put up on the screen if you wanted to see it.
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly correct. The manhole structure was there. That's correct.
So I have a question. Why aren't we looking at the ANRAD first? Because we're talking about an RDA to cross wetlands without having any wetland lines.
Can I just interject like an addition to that question? Good question, Hans. But I know there's some controversy as to whether or not both of these projects have sufficient abutter notifications. But I confess, I don't know which one's which. I don't know. One of them apparently is complete, and there's a question as to the completeness of the second one.
No, okay, so we shared the abutters list. So I did this one. I did file for the request for determination. We got the certified abutters list. We sent the mailings out. I then shared that list with Art Allen, who is the next item on the agenda here for the ANRAD. Neither one of us got 100% return back on the certified mailings, although all were sent out. I mean, it happens all the time. It does. So in that case, we did not get 100% return, or we haven't yet. They may trickle in over, that happens too. All of a sudden, 3 weeks later, you get a couple more back.
Right. I agree.
But they were sent out.
Yeah. And you have the white receipts.
I do. Yep.
That are dated.
Yep.
We'll need to see the copies of those, of course.
Okay.
That's all.
All right.
Yep. No, I've got them all, and I didn't send copies of those. I know Art did because the question came up on the ANRAD application, but they didn't. But I have them all.
Yep.
So, Paul, thank you for that explanation. That's very helpful. I don't want to walk into some kind of a technical problem later on, but it takes us right back to Hans's question, which is, I think, a good one. And that may be unfair to ask you that question, but perhaps not. I mean, why wouldn't we want to see the delineation first?
Well, I mean, Steve has looked. You're right. If you want to talk about that first, you can. Steve did a walkthrough. I didn't really get the sense that there was, too much controversy over the locations of the flags, and we're, staying respectfully beyond them. We are eager to get going with the test pits program because the stormwater design is critical to figuring out how we're going to make this work.
Yeah, you're talking about a temporary wetland crossing, which I would like to see that quantified exactly what that temporary impact is going to look like. So saying, I think we're going to go across here and maybe we're going to use boards or something is completely unacceptable.
Okay,
so
then we would be willing to take test pits 4 and 5 off the table and limit it to the other ones for now.
Can you show us the numbers here? I'm having a hard time figuring out which ones are 1, 2.
So 4 and 5. So if there's a concern over this wetlands crossing, and that is something that we need to do, we would be happy to defer those for the time being, and we could apply again at a later date for those 2. But we'd like to proceed with the other ones that don't require a wetlands crossing. We just drive right down the driveway.
So this is 1 here.
Yep.
This is number 2 here.
Yep.
This is number 3 here.
Correct. We're skipping 4 and 5.
Then there's number 6 right here.
Yep. And 7 is up the page.
7 right up in here.
Yep.
All outside the 25-foot zone.
Yep.
But how do you get there? I mean, can you get a backhoe through there?
Yeah, the woods are not, there's virtually no understory there, and it's crazy easy walking through there.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Easy walking, but what about bringing a backhoe through there?
They can do it. It'll be a small rig.
Yep.
And the reason for, is it just timing? Because if the next item on the agenda is to go out and look at flags, it's the same place. I can't figure out if the flags in place, Steve?
Yes, they sure are.
Well,
and
why?
I've looked at probably 75 to 80% of them, and didn't move any. Didn't suggest to move any. I might have moved a couple of them down gradient rather than up gradient, to tell you the truth.
Well, I'm stumped, and it goes back to Hans's question, I think, as to.
Yeah, I think
avert our eyes when we're out there
John,
walking here. Why can't we do this at the same time?
Wait, I mean, arguably you could. You know, we're eager to get the data here to understand soil conditions so that we can wrap our head around the implications as we try to, you know, formulate, you know, the design and all the parameters that go with that. That's all. So understanding stormwater and how we're going to manage it is critical path for this project. That's why we're eager to do it.
Sure, and getting to the upland area on the other side is a reasonable request. It just in order to pass muster as an RTA, I think we would need a little bit more information.
So it is my opinion that the hydrological conditions on the one side of that intermittent stream and the other probably aren't that much different. Ultimately, we will need to do some test pits back there to support design, but to understand what we're dealing with, we can live with just the data on the primary upland area and not do the crossing if that's going to be problematic. I mean, if it's all the same and you know, we're going to, you know, need to go through the whole ANRAD process before we do this anyway, then we might as well answer that question. But, you know, in the interest of trying to get, you know, data quickly, which is what we're looking to do here, we could live without those two test pits on the other side and skip the crossing completely. At least for now. We'll need to do it eventually, but we don't need to do it right now.
Isn't the real party and interest the same? Yeah, but what am I missing here? Who's the applicant?
The applicant is
John, let me step in.
Okay.
Ned Corcoran, counsel for Northbridge. We do have parallel filings. I think the RDA got in first because there is a desire to get access to the test pits so that we can understand what the soil conditions are, where's the water table, and that's obviously information that's helpful to everybody as we move forward in the process. The commission, the developer, hospital properties. This property is owned by the BID Hospital Milton and is under agreement for development to an entity called Northbridge Companies. They develop assisted living, and in this case, they've got a preliminary plan and agreement to pursue development of a memory care facility focused, a facility assisted living facility focused entirely on memory care. And so most of the work would be done upland of 25 feet non-disturbance, but most of the work would be within 100-foot setback. Shortly after the RDA application was filed, we did file an ANRAD, which is the next item on the agenda. I'm a little surprised that you didn't, as the commission, take the ANRAD first. But having said that, I know that you and I spoke, and I have suggested to neighbors and the planning board that there might be a site walk on Saturday. It looks like you do have a quorum for that. And you obviously need to go out and look at the wetland flags as would be shown on on the NRAD plan. And I think at the end of the day on Saturday, you could be in a position to vote to approve or authorize test pits at all 7 locations. We certainly would like the authority to move forward as quickly as we can with at least the 5 that have been identified tonight. And if on Saturday you determined, yes, the additional 2 would be appropriate, or if we need to come back in August with initial detail relative to how we might cross that wetland to access those 2 test pit sites, we would certainly do that. But it is one developer. There's 2 teams, if you will, wetland scientists working on the delineation of the wetlands, and Paul and his team, who are the engineers who are going to be doing the site civil. They're working in parallel and sometimes not crossing with each other as often as perhaps they might.
All right, Ned, go back to my question that I gave to Paul, and that was, is there some controversy between and among applicants, abutters, neighbors, in terms of notification?
Not that I have heard. We've had a series of abutter meetings. We've been in front of the planning board 3 times in the last month and a half. We've met with neighbors and abutters the night before each of those meetings. We've shared with abutters we've shared electronically copies of these plans and talked about these plans with them at recent meetings. So in terms of notice being made, I don't know the answer to that. All I can do is rely on the representation that Paul made and that he made on behalf of Arthur Allen with respect to the notifications that were made, with the certified letters. I was not involved in that, and I'm not aware of it, and no one has informed me that there are any issues relative to the provision of that notice.
And who is it that Arthur Allen represents?
Same group.
Same group.
So Ecotech is a sub, I think, to Oak Consulting. Ecotech performed wetland analysis in 2018 for the hospital, when the hospital was first beginning to consider potential redevelopment of this property. And he performed an update review and filed an updated letter with the board dated June 29th relative to recertification or reflagging and reevaluation of the wetland resource. I think there's been some minor changes to some of the wetland areas between the two, but he has confirmed at least we think accurately confirmed the location of the wetland flags and the nature of the wetlands that are out there.
Okay, so I think the takeaway from what you just said is that the same group of people is going to be looking at the same data on Saturday.
Right.
So we'll be looking at the flags and the wetland crossing all at the same time. So am I correct that it appears logical and reasonable to consolidate these two into one determination?
Well,
I don't think
I'm not saying eliminate one in lieu of the other, but I'm saying we can make decisions on both of them at the same time. Can we?
right. Well, they're 2 separate types of filings.
But I think, John, you're right. You can make determinations with respect to each filing on Saturday. I think.
Right. It just strikes me as being the most sensible approach to this. Because where the wetland flags are, and I think that was Hans's point, where the flags are is going to be important to determine where is the best crossing, if you need the crossing, or if there's a better way of doing the crossing.
And also determining accurately the location of the test pits relative to 25-foot no disturb line.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know, is there any commissioners that feel otherwise? Are there members of the public, abutters, anyone that would like to ask a question about whether or not the Conservation Commission, when I say we, I'm talking about the Conservation Commission, considering both of these applications at the same time, agreeing that they're separate applications, but it looks like the data is, one set of data is going to be important for an assessment of the other decision-making process. All right, I just saw some, full disclosure, I saw some emails going back and forth this afternoon about whether or not the abutters were given appropriate notification. And that's why I was confused, because it looks like the same applicant.
Yeah, this is
Mr.
Arthur Allen from Ecotech.
Yes. Doug, I can see you, but did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, my name is Doug Henry. I'm an attorney at Sharon and Lodge, and I represent Karen Bacardi, who's the direct abutter to this project. She lives at 137 Highland. And there was some confusion this afternoon about whether proper notice was given. The filing of the ANRAD that was Kathy Bowen had in the office didn't have my client on the list of having notice sent, but it appears maybe the notice was sent later on. There was also a question about the advertisement in the newspaper advertisement, because the ANRAD at least has two lots listed, 2A and 2B, which is 111 and 107 Highland, but the big lot doesn't have a number, 0 Highland, and it was unclear from the newspaper ad that the big lot was included in this ANRAD. So there's confusion on the publication, and there was some confusion on the certified mail. I don't know the answer on the certified mail because Kathy sent me something at the end of the day that appears my client was sent the notice for the ANRAD. I don't know whether she got the notice for the RDA yet. So I was the one who raised those questions earlier today.
All right, thank you. I just, from a process point of view, I don't want to go through the whole process and then somebody say, hey, you forgot to dot an I or cross a T. So I want to just put it out on the table so that we ensure that everybody has appropriate notice. But it appears that Ms. Bacardi has actual notice through your appearance. Am I correct?
Well, she has actual, I am here tonight, but I haven't talked to her this afternoon, so I don't know whether she would consider that actual notice, but I am here tonight. So it appears she got the notice for the ANRAD, but I'm not sure about the RDA yet at this point in time.
All right.
And the issue of the publication, several of the neighbors mentioned to me, who I don't represent, that there was some confusion in the neighborhood about the advertisement that was in the newspaper because it only referred to lots 107, 111 Highland, because the big lot, which is where most of this development will occur, doesn't have a number. I think it's called 0 Highland. So that was the confusion that was raised this afternoon. So that issue is still out there. I don't know the answer to it at this point, but I just wanted to clarify my discussions today with Kathy at your office.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate
But
that. That does help.
Perhaps I can add to that, John. I mean, I've been in meetings with Doug and other abutters. I think it's pretty clear in the context of those meetings and all of the discussions that all of the hospital's property is in play, and all of these plans relate to the entirety. There are 3 lots, legal lots within this property, 2 that had dwellings, and as Doug indicates, have numbers, 107 and 111 Highland. The larger portion, which is the substantial portion of the upland, and abuts Ms. Bacardi's property, is not numbered because there was never a structure on that portion of the property. But it's pretty clear to me in all of the discussions I've had with all of the neighbors and the abutters that the entirety is what's been discussed. And all of the plans that have been shown, including the wetland resource plan, the ANRAD plan that we showed to the planning board last Thursday night, at which most of the abutters were present, either live or on television, was the ANRAD plan that relates to the entirety of the lot, of the property.
Understood. So it seems like the appropriate course of action would be to meet on Saturday. We do have a quorum, 9 o'clock, and we can look at both.
I agree.
Rather than asking if everybody agrees, does anybody disagree? All right, so I think we have a plan in place. Now, there may be some additional information. I know we've had some pretty significant rain, but there was a request from a neighbor, I don't know if she's in a butter or simply a neighbor or citizen, to address some of the water issues in the area. And she sent it into the Conservation Commission. She sent some videos into the Conservation Commission, which were, I thought, pretty helpful. And I don't know whether or not she or anybody from the neighborhood group is available tonight to address any concerns with this site.
Hi, John. The neighbors are here. This is Georgia Lee, and I did send you those videos earlier today.
Oh, good evening. So would you like to ask a question or make a presentation, or what is your desire?
My hope is that we can run the videos tonight as part of this Zoom so that the committee can see what some of the impacts are of the water we're seeing prior to your Saturday walkthrough.
And I understand that these are pretty short videos. They only run, what, a minute or so or less?
Much less than a minute.
All
Yes.
right. Yeah, I think it would be helpful. I did see, I looked at one of them and I thought it was helpful to get an understanding of what the terrain actually looks like. So are you able to do that, or Steve?
I think I can do it. Let's find out. How's that?
Perfect, give it a shot.
Okay, shall do. Let's find out. Welcome to mail, add an account. No, I don't want to do that. Huh, interesting. Obviously, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm clicking on some of the, I expected them to open up automatically, and they aren't. Okay, Georgia, do you have them available to share your screen by any chance?
I think you would have to make me an administrator on the call in order for me to share those videos.
Sure. Sean, are you still there? In the background?
Still here, Steve. What can I do for you?
Yes, can you elevate Georgia to an administrator?
I believe
please?
Let me see, Georgia Lee.
Yes.
Georgia Lee has been promoted to co-host.
Okay.
Thanks. It's going to take me a minute to prepare on my side.
Okay, I have one other file that was sent in by a Eugene Irwin. Let me try to open that one up while you're doing that. Nope, that's not. Oh, wait, that's going to open up. Here we go. Maybe. You need a codec. I need to spend some money for extensions. No, I'm not going to do that. Okay. Not supported. Okay, sorry. Oh, wait. Now, is that you, Georgia, or is that this other one?
Steve, you are an eternal optimist.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing anything at all. I'm seeing a blank gray screen.
Right. And I'm not able to do anything here. Are you sharing your screen? Did you press the share at the bottom?
I did not.
You may have to shut down, Steve, to allow her to do it. Sean would be the right person to explain the process.
So maybe I can narrate what these videos depict, because I am not able to share my screen right now.
Oh, okay.
I had hoped to get this sorted out today so that you would have everything in your hands that you needed. Are you able to share your screen? Because it should be fairly simple for you to open the videos direct from your email.
That's what I've been trying to do.
Steve, I just went into the share screen advanced options, and I turned everything on to its utmost settings. Perhaps you might be able to share the videos.
The other thing I could do is quickly email these to our Milton webinar host.
Oh, that might be working. That might work.
Okay.
Please try that.
Do you want to send me in your chat your email address, or how do you want to do this?
Sean, best for you to manage that.
All right, let's see about doing this then. Give me a quick second.
Yep. I'm very sorry. It worked for me just fine earlier tonight. I was able to get into the 3 videos that Georgia sent. I will tell you that. But obviously they're not working now.
It's always tough to go live.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed it is.
Sean, can you give me your email address?
It's been sent.
In the chat. Great. Okay, so this is going to take me a minute to send you 3 separate emails, each with an attachment, with a video attachment. And I see your email here. And you can play them as soon as you receive them. And then I'll offer the narration for each video. They're in order 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I just want to make sure that once I get the emails, I may be actually able to share them.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to email one and sending it to you now. Sean, please confirm if you can see that.
I've yet to see anything new anyways. Oh, there we go. First one is up. Let's see if I can. Okay, and downloaded. Now let's see if I can do this. Files. Okay, maybe if I do that. Then.
Wendy, that's a beautiful cat you have.
Thank you, John. He loves Zoom meetings.
The keyboard must get warm, right?
Yes, yes, it does.
I think he's really competing for attention, Wendy.
I think you're right. I've tried locking him in another room and he just goes crazy and scratches at the door and meows, and so I've given up.
We'll have to appoint him to the commission.
May I just take a show of hands, or in the chat if you're off screen, how many of you are on Instagram? Because I could post these videos on Instagram right now.
It's on
Here we
now.
go. Here we go.
All right, so all I needed to do was put that in my OneDrive, and I believe you're viewing it now.
Yes, we are.
Okay, let's see if I can play it. Are you seeing this?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if I may, I will narrate what you're seeing as you see it. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay. So that was the property line along the Bacardi property. This is the highest point on the hospital property. And as you can see, we've got standing water at the highest point of the property. Right now, where I just put my hand, the current plan for the Avita building is that this would be a roadway along the top of the property. It would be an emergency access vehicle roadway. And you're looking at the spot where the road would go. So now we're going to see video 2, which is going to show you the downstream impact of the watershed, which includes this property.
Okay.
This may take a minute for Sean to get the video up, but I'm just going to read you the narration for this. This video shows the downstream impact of the watershed that extends from the hospital's Zero Highland site to the Winter Valley Building 7 site, which the Concom reviewed 1 month ago. The stream seen here runs through the Winter Valley property and was 30 feet in diameter the day the video was shot. The trifecta of development proposed by Winter Valley, Avita Health, and the Tamposi brothers will have a profound and untenable negative impact on this watershed, which is already stressed, as you will hopefully see in a second. And the reason I present this video is because as you look at the Zero Highland Street property, there's going to be a profound downstream impact. And I don't think you're going to be walking the downstream portion that is going to be impacted by this. That's video 3, and you're welcome to play it now if you'd like, but I think it's best to play video 2 first.
Okay. Let's try this thing.
That's video 3. Let's just play it. God
Sure.
wants us to play that one.
I don't know why they're out of order.
With
That's
the
okay.
site, you guys purchased a swath of land, you used a certain percentage of it, and then you resold a percentage of that land, is that correct?
No, we retained that, but we put it under a conservation restriction.
That was a very short video from one of the neighborhood planning sessions, and the neighbors are delighted that Avita has hosted these planning sessions. But the takeaway in that video was that 40% of the land is not actually going to be buildable. And the hospital sold the land as, or marketed the land as one parcel. And it is the hope of the neighbors that that 40%, if this building does proceed as proposed, that the 40% that is not going to be built on will be put into conservation, which is what Avita did at their Needham property, as Jim just mentioned in the video. So that's video 1, and we're just waiting for video 2 now, which will show us the downstream impact of the water flow from the Highland Street property. That's the one. So if any of you have been to Winter Valley before, you'll probably recognize this property. This is along the old Olmsted Garden, but you can see it's 30 feet wide, this sort of river that is flowing down. And the watershed that is pulling the water down Highland Street sort of runs through the Zero Highland Street property and along through to Winter Valley and then down to Canton Avenue. So thank you all for watching these videos. I just wanted to help you all understand what we, the neighbors, are seeing when we get a big rain. And the truth is, there's been a lot of rain in the last 2 weeks, but every summer we get 2 to 3 big rains where I see, you know, a 30-foot wide stream like you saw in that video. This is not so uncommon that it doesn't happen annually. It happens about 2 or 3 times a year. Thank you all.
Before you leave, this is Ella Wells. I just wanted to ask Georgia, could you show another video, which was the very short video that Gene Irwin sent around that he filmed yesterday, I think?
Yes, I can email that to Sean now. Sean, give me a second. I'm going to send you one last video, which is from my neighbor, Gene.
And I don't know if Gene can speak up and tell us what he's filming.
I'm here. Thank you, Georgia, and thank you, Ella, and thank you, Sean. Hi, everybody. I'll be ready when it comes up.
Well, since it's so short, Gene, why don't you give them the intro right now of what they're going to be seeing?
Okay, everyone. I think Steve and a few others have seen the storm drain that's behind number 111 Highland Street. It was Elsie de Normandy's house. It's my guess is about 80 feet behind the house, and it's an intermittent stream. It's actually, the stream is actually fed by a pipe that runs down, I believe, behind the Bacardi home, and it goes further up the street, I believe, to a swamp that's right off of Highland Lane. And this storm drain, it's an older one. I think it's been there for about 100 years. And the idea of it was to artificially, I guess, drain all the groundwater for the farm that was right next door at 107. 107, the original owners back around 1900, bought the 2 acres behind the barn going up to Winter Valley. And it was a dairy farm. And prior to the dairy farm, another 50, 100 years before that, it was the Colonel Russell Horse Farm that went all the way from Canton Ave along Highland Street up to about the Bacardi residence, or maybe even actually past it, maybe up to Dennis Burke's, Dr. Dennis Burke's. So we believe it may have had a perennial stream. It's on some maps. I have a map here in my office. There may be a way to show it to you in a little while. But going back to this manhole on this intermittent stream that runs a short distance from Winter Valley, it's been dammed up, but I believe it feeds 2 more storm drains down behind the barn at 107. So I believe the hospital 20 years ago, when they bought the property, they should have capped off these pipes and filled the storm drains, because it's wreaking havoc on the water table over there. So there'll be more to see when the film comes up. But when the film comes up, I think you'll see the blue flags. I know Steve had been out there, but I believe, Steve, you were there the day before some of the big rain started.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. And so when the water comes down the stream and it hits the storm drain that's dammed up, it's been this way for over 10 years. I have a whole bunch of pictures here of 10 years ago of pictures I took, so I can show you before and after. So for at least 10 years, that storm drain hasn't worked properly. And the water flows to the right and left of the storm drain by a huge margin. I know, I think yesterday, someone went out and reflagged it, and they moved the flags to the right and left of the storm drain, probably like, say, 10 feet, but that didn't cut it. It's the water actually floods from the storm drain almost right up to the Normandy house, which is about 50 feet away. So it's way under delineated. And I say all this water from the second stream behind the Normandy house, it flows naturally past the house, and it meanders down towards the barn, and there's a pond down there as well. So the area behind the barn, which used to be dry, is now quite vegetated, and it's mucky. It's all wet. There's a wetland underneath or a small pond underneath the barn, and there are small channels through the meadows into this other pond, which is situated about halfway into the lot off of Highland Street, but along the northern border with the neighbors. So, we have the video now. So,
and Gene, I saw when we were out there. Sorry.
I wasn't at the video while I was talking. I apologize.
Sorry to interrupt, but when we were out there in the dry, we saw the dry channel that ceased about 40 feet from that manhole there.
Yeah. Well, so you can see where the flags are and where the water is. The flags are way inside the water right now, and those are new flags.
Yeah, those are BVW flags. Those aren't not those. I don't believe those are intermittent stream flags. And maybe Arthur can tell us what he flagged at that location.
Gene, did you indicate that the flags have been moved?
Right now, as we're looking at the photograph, you can see the storm drain. It's raised about 2 feet, and there's a little flag to the left of it. That was there a week ago. Now there's 2 new flags hanging from branches next to the storm drain that aren't in this photo, but they're probably, say, 10 feet to either side of the storm drain, but the water is traveling in each direction much greater than those flags. I assumed those flags were to delineate the edge of the water. I could be wrong. I don't know.
John, if I may, I think those additional flags were flags that were put out a week ago that were put there to stake, may have been put there to stake the edges of the proposed building. So that
I don't think so, Ned.
If I may interrupt, from that storm drain, if you look at the topographical maps, it's basically from that storm drain 25 feet in either direction is your do not disturb zone. And that 25 feet in either direction is actually in the water. The disturb zone should be far more to the east. As I say, right now, the do not disturb zone, I'm guessing runs probably 30 feet away from that house at 111. And the water actually runs up to the house. So they're off by about 30 feet easily on the wetland delineation.
I'm sorry, why were you saying that the do not disturb zone runs 25 feet around the storm drain?
Okay, can Sean or someone pull up the topographical map for the site?
I can if it's in my possession.
The question.
Now, John, I think we're here to talk about delineating the edge of the wetland and whether or not the wetland flags are in the appropriate locations.
Right, that's why I didn't understand the reference to 25 feet from the storm drain, but
Okay. Well, from the storm drain
on Saturday.
25 feet to either side is the do not disturb, correct?
No, that was my point in raising it. It's not a
Okay.
measurement for the storm drain, but that's why we're going Saturday, so we can probably defer this discussion until we actually can see where the flags are.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay.
But if I may also, going back to the notifications, the Ned in Northbridge, when they presented to the selectmen back, I think in early June, they introduced the development at 111 Highland Street, period. And the following day, the Patriot Ledger carried the story. And it said that Northbridge, wanted to build a memory clinic there. And it said it was on 4.39 acres. It was a short story in the Patriot Ledger. Only about 3 or 4 paragraphs, as I recall. So when I was talking to my neighbors, all my neighbors said, Gene, you're wrong. This isn't the whole parcel. This is just 4.39 acres. We read it in the paper. You're wrong. So there's tremendous confusion in my neighborhood. And also, as far as walking it, I have a number of neighbors who I don't think a lot of people can walk 11 acres or 10 and a half, whatever it all turns out to be. The upland land next to Bacardi's is sort of easy walking, but the rest of it is you're up to your shoulders in vegetation.
All right, well, we appreciate the heads up and we'll be able to take a look firsthand on Saturday.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, John, can we please just take a few minutes to explain what an ANRAD is versus a notice of intent and what we are supposed to be talking about here as opposed to, so we understand there's a project coming. We understand Ned has given us some insight on the project, but the intent for tonight is to try to get an understanding of what the wetland delineation is and the wetlands are out there, which I don't even believe that piece of the hearing is even started yet. So we understand that there's concerns about the project, but we need to follow the process here. So I'm just wondering if we can get back on the actual ANRAD discussion, if you don't mind.
I think the sense is that these have been joined during our discussion, that 7 and 8 were both joined, and it's my understanding that we're going to continue this until Saturday morning at 9 o'clock so we can actually see it firsthand. It's the only way to find out where the test sites are for the RDA and to see where the flags are for the ANRAD. So it was my thought that we had ended the discussion. I think the neighbors and abutters, I think your point is well taken, Hans, but I think we're at a point now where we can continue the hearing until Saturday morning. Unless I'm missing something. I don't think there's any benefit to further discussion because we haven't seen the flags and we haven't seen the location of where the test pits are designed to go. But I agree with you. This is not for the public's benefit. This is not the project approval. That's not what we're doing. So that's why I say it's a good point.
We have a long way to go in that regard.
Yes.
And this is, we're, you know, just stepping up to the plate. And we need you to approve the wetland delineation so we know where work can be done. And we need you to approve the location of test pits so that we can do soils analysis to help us prepare materials going forward that would obviously come back to you at such time as we file an order of conditions or a request for an order of conditions.
Yeah. And we understand that this site has some hydrologic challenges, which is why we're prioritizing getting these test pits done so we can make sure we understand what we're dealing with in full.
And Mr. Chairman, just for the group's information, I don't know if you can see the shared screen presently.
Yes, we can.
Well, right here is where that manhole was. That was in the intermittent stream. Okay, there was a channel going that way and a channel going that way. It looked like, or some water going this way, water going that way, downhill. Okay, just to give you an idea of where that location is. There's number 111. And here is the driveway right here. It goes back to Highland Ave. Okay, there's the driveway. Here's the existing, what I call a carriage barn here. And here's the existing barn here. And as you can see, the wetland actually goes right to underneath the barn. Right there. Just FYI, at least on this plan. Just wanted to let everybody know what we will be looking at on Saturday.
All right, and then the driveway, Steve, just for ease of entry, that's where we're going to get to the.
This driveway?
Yes.
Actually, there's another driveway here that will hold a number of cars if cars are packed in tight in this area right here.
John, that's the location where the house at 107 came down. We were before the commission a year and a half ago. There is a gravel parking area there that's sufficient to handle a good number of vehicles.
Yes, I would say up to probably 7 or 8 anyway.
Yeah. All right, so that's 107. That's perfect.
Correct, 107.
All right.
There's a driveway that comes down a steep slope there.
All right.
This driveway doesn't offer very much place to turn around. You can park on it, but you'd have to back around. There's not a really good area here.
All right, fair enough. We still have quite a bit left on our agenda this evening, so unless there are further questions or comments from commissioners, the butters or members of the public, then I suggest we continue this matter until Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, and we will meet at 107 Highland Street.
If I could, just briefly, this is Arthur Allen from Ecotech.
Yes, sir.
I prepared and filed the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, ANRAD. I also did the delineations of the site both in 2018 and most recently in this last month of June. Just wanted to clarify quickly, there's a lot of discussion about water on the site, especially where we're nearing a record amount of rainfall in July. So basically, just so you know, I flagged the bordering vegetated wetlands on this site. Apparently there's flooding, excess water that appears to be probably part of a flood event that's outside of the wetland boundaries. It does not necessarily make the wetland boundaries invalid. The flood zones are always outside of the wetland, so they extend outside of the wetlands. So just to keep that in mind as we move forward. There may be additional resource areas associated with the flood zones out there, but that's not what I delineated. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Allen. I appreciate your comments. All right, I think we're ready to move on. We'll see you, all the folks that are desirous of going on the walk on Saturday morning.
What time?
Thank you.
9 o'clock, 9 a.m.
9 o'clock. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Art.
No problem.
The next on the agenda is notice of intent 485, 487 Blue Hill Parkway.
Mr. Kiernan, good evening. This is Adam Brodsky. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir, I can. Good evening, Adam.
Good evening, everyone. I'm an environmental and land use lawyer with Drowan, Tacho, and Morgan, and I represent the applicant. And with me this evening are Paul Driscoll on behalf of 485, 487 BHP Trust LLC, Michael Joyce, our professional engineer with Joyce Consulting, John Zimmer, our professional wetland scientist with South River, and Katya Podsiadlo, our landscape architect with Verdant. And we're here to present our updated site plans and landscape plans for your review. The Zoning Board of Appeals has reviewed these plans and has no further changes to propose. And we're planning on meeting with them, I believe it's next week again, to discuss waivers and conditions for approval of the project. It's been a late night, so I'll keep my remarks brief, and with your permission, simply hand this over to Mike Joyce to explain. He's prepared to share screen and take you through the plans, but I'll leave that to your discretion whether you want Mr. Ivas to control the screen or Mike. Thank you.
All right, yeah, thank you, Adam. I have maybe a question. I don't expect that anything will be voted on this evening, but I have had a discussion offline with one of our members who has indicated some discomfort because of his good personal relationships with the applicants. And it may be appropriate that Todd Hamilton recuse himself from further consideration of this project, but I actually hand that back to Mr. Hamilton and himself to see whether or not he's comfortable proceeding or if he would prefer to recuse himself from this project.
Probably be better if I recuse myself.
All right. It is actually for good reasons that their personal relationships with the applicant going back many years, which is a good thing. So thank you very much. And if you do wish to recuse yourself, we will continue in your absence and call you because we'd like you to come back for the next item on the agenda, the next two items on the agenda.
All right, just give me a call, John.
Thanks, sir.
Hello, I'm Michael Joyce with Joyce Consulting Group, civil engineer for the project. Steve, I don't know if you prefer that I share my screen or if you'd just rather I work off this plan, whatever's easier for you. I have some of the updated civil site plans that we hadn't submitted up to this point that I could share, or the landscape plans based off of those plans, so I could work off that as well.
We have not seen those plans, Michael, so it would be very useful if you could share your screen.
Okay.
We don't have plans in hand.
All right, am I all set up to share or?
Sean?
Yep.
Sean, can you elevate Michael Joyce?
Can you see the screen?
We can see a screen.
Can you see my screen? You see a simple site plan?
Yes.
No, okay, great. Okay, so let's kind of go back to the start. So try and keep this brief as well. Just want to give you kind of the rundown of what we've done, meeting with the zoning board, the changes that have been made, and also the changes that we've made to incorporate the comments we've heard from the Conservation Commission to this point. Primarily, the existing conditions plan is more or less the same. We've updated to include some additional site trees, and we've also expanded the topography outside of prior to the prior plan had it more or less to the property line. We've expanded it outside of the property line in order to make sure that our design interacts with the abutting properties appropriately. So those are, in addition, as you know, the wetlands have been flagged by John Zimmer, professional wetland scientist, who's with us tonight and can answer any questions regarding the wetland flagging or resource areas. So this was our original plan. We had about 4-foot landscape islands up top, subsurface infiltration chambers, a retaining wall with a driveway to the side, a smaller back parking area or driveway with a smaller rain garden retention area in the rear for stormwater. After much discussion and back and forth with the zoning board and the peer reviewers, we had peer reviewers from an architectural standpoint, civil engineering, and traffic as we went through the zoning board. This is the site layout that we ended up agreeing upon. I think one of the concerns that the Conservation Commission had brought up early on was the number of parking spaces. In order to address that, we added some parking spaces to the rear here. In addition to that, I think originally our 6 spaces for the trail area, where it was concerned that those would be used by residents. We've put those off and isolated them. We'll also have signs indicating that they're for trail use only at the rear of the property. And there'll also be this walking trail 200 feet out that connects to Pine Tree Brook and the path that runs parallel to that brook. There's a site plan further on and that I'll show that shows the full connection to the brook. In addition, we're now providing 2 10-foot wide landscape areas in the parking area. We've graded the site such that we don't need a retaining wall here. And overall, I think it incorporates a better feel to the entirety of the property. It keeps it more open. From a stormwater standpoint, we've revised it fairly significantly as well. We've taken a more country approach to our drainage design and removed the subsurface drainage system below the parking lot here. Now everything flows in the upper parking lot to the catch basin and is directed to an oil grit separator and overflows to stormwater retention system. The rooftop runoff is collected by virtue of roof leaders around the entirety of the building and outlets to stormwater retention area in the rear. And then the rear kind of parking areas sheet flow to a sediment forebay, ultimately go to the stormwater retention area, which overflows to a similar control structure as we had in the original design and ultimately flows out of the site. The main driveway area has been expanded to allow fire access around the entirety of the building and also to provide for that parking in the rear. We've included pedestrian walkways to the sidewalks from the site, which was also an improvement that was made through discussions with the zoning board. And overall, from an access standpoint, we still maintain the 2 curb cuts. And really our impact to the resource area, we haven't gone any closer than approximately 45 feet to the bordering vegetated wetland here with our proposed work, with the exception of some of the remediation work that John Zimmer is currently working on a plan for that work as we've discussed throughout this project. So this is just the zoomed out view of the proposed pathway with a cross section. It's an 8-foot wide proposed path with dense grade gravel. It'll be extended from the parking area out 200 feet to Pine Tree Brook, and we've located it over the existing 10-foot easement, water easement. So it serves 2 purposes. It'll keep the water easement clear, and it'll also provide, a delineated area, a walking path to Pine Tree Brook. In addition to this work, we've also engaged Verdant Landscape, as Attorney Brodsky mentioned, and they've put together a comprehensive planting plan, which you can see here, consists of, within the landscape buffer, I believe the majority, if not all, the plantings now have been revised to be native species. And then we've also, provided erosion control mix in the resource area, in the retention area and lawn in the community area, which I know the zoning board wanted to see community area in the rear, and I think your board brought that up as well, as something that you would like to see. So those are the main changes. I don't want to keep rambling on. I know it's been a late night, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
A quick one, Michael. I see 3 vegetation types, one in each of the trees, shrubs and vines, and herbaceous that are not natives. Okay, so there's one in each type, just to let you know.
Okay, and Kathy, you can probably speak to this better than I can, but I know that in the entirety of the site, not all the plants are native. There are some screening shrubs that I think we selected for screening more than the native species, but we certainly will have everything within the buffer. The resource area buffers will be native.
Okay.
Can I take you back, Michael, to a couple of 2 screens before this one? The one right here. Can you just walk me through what the stormwater calculations are? That's a lot of water going into that retention basin in the rear of the property.
Sure. Yeah, and that's why the stormwater retention area is so large. So what happens is it is all handled at the surface rather than subsurface. You can almost see a correlation in the size of the retention area here versus what we had under the parking area previously. But what happens is it's all collected through catch basins or through the surface and runs off into the sediment forebay. Once that surcharges to the stormwater retention area, and then it slowly builds up in the stormwater retention area and comes through these 2 overflow pipes to an outlet control structure, which outlets to a 4x8, 12-inch deep, 6-inch minimum riprap stone level spreader, and flows off the site. In all the storm events, the rate of runoff is decreased to 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storms. And it all has been peer reviewed by Tetra Tech. Sean, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his last name.
It's late, Sean Reardon. Mike.
Reardon, thank you. I knew it began with an R. Sean Reardon, and I worked extensively on revising the stormwater system. Well, the nice things about a system like this is everything is at the surface. So if there are any issues, you know immediately. Maintenance is a little bit more straightforward. If you see sediment building up, it's not something where you have to get a jet truck in to run it through the stormwater chambers. You can just mainly dig out the sediment, so to speak, and dispose of it properly. So you can get ahead of any issues that may occur earlier than you could if they were subsurface.
Well, I know the purpose of the retention pond is to slow it down, to allow a recharge over an extended period of time. But I'm looking at, a building area that's pretty significant in terms of impervious surface. I'm looking at the front parking lot and the back parking lot. And it looks to me that everything's going into this retention pond. And what is, I understand what you said, that on the 5, 20, 25, 50, 100-year storm, there's a net decrease. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And like I said, it hasn't been looked at just by me. 2 professional engineers have gone through it and reviewed it. Sean Reardon and I both have, I obviously did the design, he peer reviewed it, and we're both in agreement that it will function properly.
But that sounds like a net decrease over the entire property. And what I'm looking at is a pretty narrow outlet here. I understand there'll be a level spreader or something to spread it, and there's a riprap there as well. But that's a lot of water being concentrated right next to it. I'm looking at the top right-hand.
Yep. Yeah,
corner.
kind of this area here.
Yes, exactly right there. And that's a lot of water going into that. And that happens to be, as you know, the Conservation Commission land and it's wetlands. So I guess it's the right place for the water to go eventually. But that's concentrated.
And this spot was selected as well because the site does all pitch in that direction. Really, the low area is this kind of area here. Originally, I had the outlet up in this corner, and that the way the grades on the site work, as we got additional survey information, this really wasn't the localized low point. It was this area here, which is why it was relocated to that area.
All right. And I'm gonna, this is not a question, I'm gonna make a statement, and I really don't expect an answer, but we did conduct a site inspection. We've done many site inspections there because of our interest in Pope's Pond. But in the land that is both jurisdictional to us and we happen to be the deeded owner of the land, there's a lot of debris. We saw in that very area where the discharge pipe is, we saw cars, a trailer, a couple of I-beams, and we're gonna need some help getting that place cleaned up. And I just want you to put in the back of your mind that if you're looking for what the Conservation Commission might be looking for, it might be just that, assistance in cleaning that area. And you may say, well, the current owners didn't put it there. The Conservation Commission didn't either. And I just, keep your eye from a public service perspective out, that might be something that we'd be looking from your assistance on. I assume you're aware of some of the debris that's out there. It's pretty shocking, actually.
Yeah, there's certainly been discussions about it, and I think it's an ongoing discussion. I wouldn't want to speak out of turn and commit to anything, but it is something that we've been working towards.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to put it on your radar screen. I wasn't trying to look for an answer from you right now. It's just one of our concerns that we've all had an opportunity to see and to be dismayed by. All right. Questions from commissioners? I assume comments, suggestions? How about abutters, members of the public?
Yes, Roy Chambers here. I have a question for Mike. Mike, when you said it goes off-site, the water, the storm water goes off-site, where does it go? Does it go into the Pine Tree Brook?
Ultimately, it would go into the Pine Tree Brook. It would surface flow over to the bordering vegetated wetlands, which ultimately connect with Pine Tree Brook.
Yeah, so you're already gonna move into a stressful area that's already been subjected to heavy rains, especially over the last week. Your plan is to dump your stormwater runoff into the Pine Tree Brook eventually.
So, Roy, the way what we're tasked with as professional engineers is creating a stormwater design that when you develop a site. So, with this site, we have a mix of impervious areas on the site that generate runoff currently as it is today, and that runoff flows in a certain direction. In this case, it flows roughly to the 3/4 of the way down the property line on the right-hand side. So what we do, we're tasked with designing a stormwater system, which is why there is that large stormwater retention area in the rear that will handle that stormwater runoff and will release it in a way that mimics what's there currently or decreases the flow from what's coming from the site. So while we are outletting the stormwater from the site in that location, the purpose of our design is to basically replicate what's existing. So what comes from our site is no more than what's there today. So I wouldn't say that we're adding additional stress to the resource area or Pine Tree Brook. I guess that would be my response.
I mean, you already said that there's a large quantity of water that will be running off your site, stormwater, will already be going into the Pine Tree Brook, which, I mean, I'm sure you're aware that the brook right now has difficulty handling the water that's already coming into it. So my concern is, because I live on the brook, is there's going to be added water to the brook.
So, Mr. Chambers, this is Adam Brodsky, and I'm only a lawyer and not an engineer, but what Mike can also explain to you is that we're actually treating the water before it moves off site. And so the water's much cleaner than what presently exists. So under present conditions, there's stormwater that moves off site, which is untreated and would eventually get to the brook. Under this design, we're capturing that water, we're treating it on site, and so what's being discharged is less water, it's cleaner water, and it will result in an environmental improvement. But Mike, you're the expert, not me.
No, that's accurate.
All right, well, I guess we'll see you in the end when it's done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other abutters, members of the public that have a question or would like to make a comment? All right, so what is your, Adam, I think it goes back to you. What is the schedule, if that's the appropriate word, for the ZBA? I mean, I know you're looking for a comprehensive permit. You still have to go through the waiver process. And what's the timeline look like before you come back to us?
Well, Mr. Karen, I believe they're in front of the ZBA on July 22nd, where they're going to be reviewing waivers and draft conditions. We're hopeful to get to a final decision, if not at the next meeting, the meeting after that. And obviously, we're looking to close with you as soon as possible.
As soon as possible after that, correct?
Well, I don't think there's anything that would prohibit you from closing the public hearing this evening if you don't require any additional information. The notice of intent was submitted under the Wetlands Protection Act. The project clearly meets performance standards. But again, this is up to the discretion of you and the commission as to how you want to handle this.
Well, the issue we've had in the past from a historical perspective is that until you have a comprehensive permit, we still have a 25-foot non-disturb zone. And I don't think you could, I'm not sure you can get by that currently. We have additional wetland bylaw concerns that might
Yes,
make
sir.
it for you to await the comprehensive permit.
Understood, but if you review the notice of intent, you'll see that it was submitted under the Wetlands Protection Act only. I do not believe that was submitted under your local bylaw. So we'd be only looking for an order of conditions under the Wetlands Protection Act.
No, we had the same issue with 711 Randolph Avenue, and we denied it under the wetlands bylaw. And then it started towards the Superior Court and then they just eventually awaited for the comprehensive permit. So I think
yes, sir. We're not looking to pick a fight with the Conservation Commission. Again, if it's your preference to continue the public hearing until after the ZBA votes, we're absolutely fine with that. So you have assurance that indeed the local bylaw was waived by the ZBA under the comprehensive permit.
Great, that's certainly my preference, but as you know, I need your assent to continue the hearing, but that would certainly be my preference. I think it makes good sense, good common sense for all parties to do it that way.
Yes, sir. I mean, we've had great success working together with the town on this project, and I certainly don't want to change that path.
That's good. And if there are no other comments from the design that's been reviewed tonight from commission members, then we could continue this matter until, do you want an August date or do you want to pick a September date? I think even when the ZBA closes their hearing, they're probably not going to come in with a permit decision for whatever, a month or so. Is that correct?
That part of the schedule is a little bit unsettled. If I might suggest, perhaps if you give us an August date and we're not prepared to move forward, we can notify you ahead of time and ask for a further continuance.
That probably makes good sense. So why don't we set it, Steve, for the August 10th date?
Yes.
And then if need be, we can continue it until September. Make sense? Or any other comments or questions or concerns? Perfect. All right. Hearing none, then we can move on to the next agenda item. All right.
Thank you and good night.
All right, thank you and good night. Thanks for your patience.
Good night.
Okay, next on the agenda is the enforcement order at 82 Cliff Road.
Let's see. 82 Cliff. Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. I'm looking at my screen. I don't see Mr. Powers. Are you there? I just can't see you. I think you're there.
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, good, perfect, thanks. All right, and there may have been some confusion, and I'll tell you right up front, I apologize if I've contributed to the confusion, but let me give you a little bit of recent history. Traditionally, what the Conservation Commission has done, when there's evidence of a violation, we have issued an enforcement order. And then after inspection and hearing, the Conservation Commission has traditionally requested that a remediation plan be presented via a notice of intent, which is the traditional way where an applicant will come in and say, I'd like to do the following things. And it follows the course of the filing of the notice of intent. After discussion, we would then issue an order of conditions. The order of conditions is appealable by any party, actually, or by neighbors, abutters, or a member of the citizenry. And then that appeal would go to the DEP for an administrative review, and then later on an administrative hearing, if necessary, because the DEP can issue what's called a superseding order. About 5 months ago, I received a call from the DEP representative who asked us, the Milton Conservation Commission, to change that protocol, that traditional approach, and not to use a notice of intent when there is an enforcement order, and rather the terms and conditions of the remediation, that is the correction of whatever the violation was, would be attached to the enforcement order. And she asked that we not accept notices of intent. She also told us that this past March, that she was going to make, and I believe she did make, a presentation to the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions to make sure that all commissions throughout the Commonwealth abide by that DEP rule. She told me that Milton and about 5 other towns had traditionally used notices of intent, and she asked that we no longer do that. So I think there's been some confusion, and for members of the public and other board commissioners, you should know that Mr. Powers was concerned because there seemed to be, and I probably contributed to the confusion by talking about the components of a notice of intent, where I should have said the notices of the plan to remediate the enforcement order. So it's a little bit technical, but we're actually doing the request of the DEP and not asking for a notice of intent. But having said that, we still need the same components. It's like, mixing cookies. You still put the cookie dough in and the chocolate chips, and so we still need the chocolate chips and the cookie dough. It's just we're not going to call it a notice of intent. Having said all that, and that's a long-winded way of saying we still need some formal plan from you to show how you're going to pull back that slope so that, we go from a 1-to-1 slope to a 2-to-1 slope, which will stabilize the slope and prevent sedimentation and erosion into the river. We also need a plan to pull back where the fill has been buried, basically the tree roots, which will kill as we've discussed before, will kill the tree. So we do need those plans, and they have to be, official to the extent that it can't be drawn on the back of the napkin, but you're going to need professional help to come in with that plan. We do have the overhead picture that I think we're all looking at right now, and we have a series of those that, and again, I'm not an engineer here, but it does look like the current condition of your land does show that there has been filling in the last I don't know. I don't know, the last recent history, I'll call it, because I can't tell you 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. I can't do that. But it does look like there has been fill, and what we observed looked like fill, and that's what needs to be pulled back. So with that long-winded explanation as to where we are, may I ask you, do you have a plan as to how to pull that fill back, both to protect the slope and to protect the trees?
We don't have drawn plans. No, we were waiting for data. We've been trying to get in touch with Kathy Bowen for, just about a month now. We sent an initial request to her on the 14th. She was still out, no response. June 24th comes around, we sent a follow-up asking for some information, no response, out of office for another week. We reached out to the town administrator, who reached out to the DPW director. Again, no response for about a week. I sent a follow-up to the DPW director, and I did get a response from Kathy the next day. But she didn't have any information for me. She says that that this isn't the main part of her job, that she doesn't have time to deal with it all, that they're short-staffed. But yeah, that she didn't have any more information. So that was that the 2nd? So on the 6th, I sent a follow-up asking for, she was going to get me some more information. I think what Mr. Ivers has tonight was supposed to be sent to me based on our conversation at the last meeting. I've got nothing. She said she did not have anything. So on the 6th, when I followed up, I got no response. And then on the 9th, I sent another request for meeting minutes I had requested back on the 13th of June. And that's the response I got then, was I needed to file a public records request. So I did that, which a month later, she asked me to call. We talked for a few minutes, and it seemed like she had no idea of anything that we had spoken about in the past. Yeah, so we don't have a physical plan tonight, but I've been out there. I've taken some measurements on how the slope would have to be changed to be a 2-to-1. At the highest point, I think it's like 9 feet high from base to top. And right now it's about, like you say, 1-to-1 with a quick measurement there. So it would have to come back about, you say, 9 feet in the farthest spot, and then 2 feet in some of the smaller sections. And to get the slope, I created like just a thing with 2x4s with an angle to get that right angle. So we can lay that on, and as we're re-sloping it, just bring that along as a guide to say, yep, this is the right slope that you need.
Well, forgive me, I don't mean to be rude. I just have to reach over into a stack of papers. So just give me 10 seconds, all right?
Yes, sir.
Now, I may not have reached for the right pile, but I thought that Kathy sent you something last week.
Yeah, so late last Friday, she sent me an email.
All right, and there's a list of questions or requirements for you?
Yeah. I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, she did send me an email with that.
All right, so, and I think that email was shared with Steve, unfortunately, I picked up the wrong pile. So, Steve, you may have the components of what it is that we will need in terms of, removal of the fill, creating the new slope, saving the trees.
I do not have it right at hand. I'm sorry, John, I can't.
Okay.
No, I do not have it at hand. I'm very sorry.
I apologize to all because I thought I had it in my stack for this evening. All right, here it is here. I do have it. So apology for the delay, but it says the following should be included, and she did say notice of intent, and as I explained, that DEP is asking. But what she said we need is the amount of material brought into the property and the removal of the material or some portion of it to save the trees that have been buried and to stabilize the slope, to establish the former top of the slope and the present top of the slope. Now, can we do that from topographical photos, Steve?
We can establish the location of the former top of slope from topographic measurements on these kinds of photos, yes.
Okay. So
we can see very easily. In fact, for example, this particular photograph, if you look here to the back of the garage, and right in here, you can see where the top of slope is. This heavier green line. And if you look down here on the legend, you have a scale that shows you 0 to 25, for example, and it's probably pretty close to 25 feet to the top of the slope at that location. And in the middle of the house itself, it's probably 40 feet plus, right, at that location. Okay, so we can establish that for particularly years. And it appears, going through some of these photos that Alan Bishop was able to provide for us, that the slope didn't change until, well, the slope didn't change very much until 2019 at least. We do not have any current photos of the house after 2019.
Okay, but you said it did change in 2019?
It did not, no. No, that's the point. It didn't change until at least 2019.
Oh, I see. I understand.
Right, right.
And what, I know this is an old photo, then do we have any indication currently where the top of slope is?
Not from any aerial photographs. We'd have to go out there and measure it. And Mr. Powers would have to allow us onto the property again.
Okay.
In order to, or he could do it himself.
All right. Well, you know, see, that's part of what we need, because we need to establish where the former, and now I'm reading from Kathy's email, former top of slope and the present top of slope. We need to see that difference. And then the next item is the slope is now 1-to-1 slope down to the river. The slope elevation needs to be 2-to-1 to prevent erosion and sedimentation into the river after significant storms. The next item here is that the location of the river's bank, beginning of the riverfront area, is within the 100 and 200 foot riverfront area. That's obvious from what we're looking at here. And then it's the last point is the size of the riprap stones to be placed in the location of the erosion controls on the slope. What she's asking for is this would be part of, and she said notice of intent, but I'm correcting her and I've made the same mistake, that it would be the remediation plan for the enforcement order as opposed to a notice of intent. But the components of it are still there, and that's what's in the email that she sent to you last week. So I guess my question is to you, you know, can you get some assistance and have somebody that can draw this out? And again, I wasn't being facetious, or I hope I wasn't, when I said it can't be on the back of a napkin. I mean, it has to have some, you know, professional component to the design plan. But we really should move on this, because you've seen, you know, the recent rainstorms, and these are pretty significant rainstorms, and that slope is going to wash to the river. So what do you think you can do in terms of coming up with a plan to remediate this situation? And one of them, I'm going to go back and say, the amount of material that was brought onto the property. We have an estimate from, you know, the commissioner, one of the commissioners that was there, that it was about 500 cubic yards. That's a lot of fill. And I don't know if you, I don't know how it got there, but that's a lot of fill. And, we might be able to work with you to sort of redesign the slope so that it's protected and you wouldn't have to remove 500 cubic yards. But certainly there's going to be a substantial removal of fill. So you have to have some kind of a plan to where you're going to put it. Where's it going to go? So these are the kinds of issues that you're going to have to address. And I don't know if you've thought, I heard what you said about trying to contact Kathy. But if you tried to contact any professional engineers, landscape architects, anybody?
We haven't yet. We were told to work with Kathy first. I was trying to get any information we could out of Kathy.
All right. So putting aside the delay here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items here on the email that she sent last week. So that gives you a start. What do you think you could do between now and August 10th?
I mean, yeah, I can try and make some calls and get somebody out here to help. I mean, can I start the work that you want done too?
You have to give us a plan first, and we'll work with you on that. And then once we approve the plan, then you can get started. But you have to have a plan in place before you actually do it.
Okay. And I had sent Kathy the information on the tree because we had discussed taking the tree out rather than having to try and figure out how to undig it. A tree that's been, it doesn't, I mean, it's just a tree. Like all the trees in the neighborhood are buried on the hill.
And just to note, in like the last few, I think not this past storm, but the storm before, our neighbors at 81 across the street, they lost a tree that looked very similar to the one that, we're hopefully going to be able to take out. And luckily it fell on their fence and not their house. And I am a little bit nervous about that tree, just, for our own safety.
Yeah, so they had the same split type tree and they lost a limb that faced the back. If they had lost the other one, they would have lost their house.
And that tree has lost some limbs in the last storms, the ones in the fall of last year, I believe. So I don't know.
Well,
I thought you told us that you had an arborist report.
Yep.
No. We said we had a quote. We had a quote to remove it, and in there, the arborist noted what was wrong with it. Was what we had discussed at the last meeting, and it was clear that we had a quote.
Well, that's what Kathy did forward that to me, and it was an estimate as to what it would cost to remove the tree. But I thought you said that the arborist reported that the tree was dead.
I did not report that. He said it should be removed because of the split habit, I believe is what he called it, and the severe lean towards the house. Which I believe he noted both of those in the quote itself. I inquired about an arborist report. They said that would be $250.
All right. I don't recall. I remember seeing the dollar amount, which I thought was pretty high.
Same.
$200. I almost fainted. That's a lot of money to take a tree out.
The plan would be to get all the quotes if it were agreeable.
Good. All right. Well, the first thing is to pull the slope back, and that would certainly contribute to the health of the tree, which appeared to me to be pretty healthy when we were out there on site. So again, it goes to the plan. If you want to remove a healthy tree, we've certainly done it in the past, but we call it a performance standard, and that is you have to replace the tree with other trees. And there's an actual standard that we've changed it recently, but we've now started to apply it to all applicants, and we try to do things the same for everybody.
Is that published somewhere?
Well, the original standard that we had was 3-to-1. It's been the same for 28 years, and that was 3-to-1. But it actually depended upon the size of the trees. And right now we have it's got to go to the Board of Selectmen to become a regulation, and that has not been done yet. But that one is it's called DBH, which is diameter at breast height. And actually it's circumference at breast height. But we look for the sum of the trees taken out. So if you took out one tree and it had a 30-inch circumference at breast height, then you'd have to replace it with 10 trees at 3 inches, or 2 trees at 15 inches, or 3 trees at 10 inches. The sum has to equal. So you take the circumference of the tree you're removing, and then you create however many trees you want to replace it. So, you know, typically people will buy trees at 3 to 4 inches of circumference. That's actually a diameter. I apologize. I just changed on you from circumference to diameter. But most people will buy a tree at like 3 to 3.5 inches, maybe 4 inches of diameter for replacement purposes. And somebody that's better than math can go from diameter. I know it's pi something or other, but you can go from diameter to circumference and figure it out. But there is a performance standard that we've applied that I know of for the last 29 years.
Sorry, this might be a silly question, but for that calculation, is that 3 to 1? You take out a tree, you plant 3, whatever calculation that is. Does it have to be on your property, or does that go just somewhere in Milton?
It's both. If that's that sounds like a terrible answer, but if you want to put them on your property, you may. Some people just don't have the space to put them, and they
That's kind of what I was getting at.
put them elsewhere in Milton. Yes, I mean we've had people plant trees down at Turner's Pond because they didn't have their own property.
So what if this tree were to come down? What if it were to fall? Like, you know, if it hits our house, who's liable for it?
I guess Mother Nature.
Well, I mean, is our insurance company going to buy that?
If the tree were distressed and dead, sure. We're very sensitive to public safety, but the whole commission was out there. We all looked at the tree, and I didn't see anything wrong with the tree. It looked pretty healthy to me.
I mean, it leans heavily to the house, and it has that split right where it would fall onto the house.
Well, maybe you could get an arborist report, and I thought that's what we talked about going back to the day that we were there. And I know you and I have discussed it after that, and I thought you were going to get an arborist report. I didn't. I saw the $3,200 on an invoice. I didn't see that the arborist had made a decision that it was dead, dying, or severely leaning. I'll go back and look at it again, but I did not see that.
You know, this is the first I'm hearing of an arborist report, besides when Kathy told me on Friday. We had only talked, I said I got a quote from an arborist when you asked if it was an arborist. And I said it was. And he put in the quote what the issues were with said tree. But I understand what you're saying.
Okay. Well, we need a plan from you to remediate the problem. And we need some of the fill taken out, not all of it, but there's got to be a substantial amount of fill taken out in order to recreate the slope that you, I mean, we all saw fill that was there. And certainly the tree has not been in the position that it has been, with at least 3 feet of fill on top of it, if not more, on top of the root base. And we all stood there and looked at it.
I mean, I could show you 20 trees that are buried like that on the hill. You know, all the way down the street, even in front yards down the street. So, I mean, yeah.
That tree is pretty important because it's holding the slope. So I don't know if you have any questions or if you want.
Well, if I have questions, will Kathy answer them? That's like the problem is I can't wait a month to get a response.
I think that's a difficulty because we didn't get that email with everything in there until last week. So now we're going to move
Friday at 3 o'clock.
So now we can move on this, but it's just hard if we have questions in the meantime. Like, who can we reach out to that can give us, an answer that is consistent with what you guys are thinking of, and not telling us to do a notice of intent, because I thought he negated all of that. John Kieran negated all of that last meeting. So I think that's where we're just a little bit confused. So it would just be helpful to have a direct point of contact that knows what they're talking about.
you can call me.
Okay.
All right, I've
Okay.
got your, I think you've got my email. If you don't, I've
I
got
don't.
yours and I'll respond to you. So that
Thank you.
You'll have mine. But, in fairness to the commission, we did discuss with you the very first day when we were out at your property that you would need a plan to pull back
Mhm.
to unbury the tree.
When you were here, you said I could start digging, and you had marked with your foot like a proposed height for the top of the slope when you were out back at my house that day. It wasn't talk about a written plan or anything like that. That was new at the last meeting.
I have a very clear memory of saying you can't write it on the back of a napkin. That's a quote. So yes,
You said that at the last meeting, correct? But in the rain at my house, that wasn't said. And if it,
okay. All right.
there were a lot of side discussions happening at our house, which, I mean, it was an open meeting. Like the side discussion shouldn't have been happening. So I don't know. I don't know about if there were side discussions that said that.
It would probably be more beneficial to everybody if we look forward instead of back. So at this juncture, let's see if you can put a plan together for us, and hopefully we can get this resolved by August. But what we don't want is come in on August 10th and give us a plan then. We need one before that we can take a look at, and we can make, we can make rational comments, make some suggestions. And I know it's going to take some legwork on your part, because you're going to have to look around for, different bids probably, particularly if you're insisting on taking the tree down. Get some bids, some additional bids. I thought that was pretty expensive. And I don't even know who it was. I'm not, leaning towards or away from any arborist. It's just that I was surprised at the cost. All right, any commissioners that would have a suggestion or comment as to how best to move this forward in a beneficial fashion? Steve, any ideas?
Not more than you have provided, John. I think you've done a good job.
I think, John, you're right. He needs a plan. And then plan that shows elevations too.
All right, so our plan is to get a plan from you. All right, so if we work together, I think we can get this thing behind us.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thanks all. All right, next on the agenda is national priority list by the EPA. And just by way of history, was it 3 years ago? No, it wasn't. It was 2 years ago that the Conservation Commission had a joint meeting with the Select Board at the Council on Aging on Walnut Street, or Walnut and Clap Street. And at the time, the EPA came and made a presentation. They were pushing to put us, when I say us, I'm talking about Milton and Boston, that abut the Deposit River on the national priorities list. The reason that's important is that the national priorities list is just it is what it says it is. It's a list of priority sites that are Superfund sites. And once you get a Superfund designation, there's all kinds of congressional funding to get the cleanup done. And the deposit is in dire need of getting rid of the PCPs that have basically formed in the sediment behind the many dams. And this would be tremendously beneficial to the river, the fish, the wildlife. It would help everybody if we could get federal funding and get it done. Now, of course, EPA can be pretty draconian going after the owners, the generators, and the transporters of any contaminant. But this is a historic site. I mean, the mills have been there for a couple of 100 years. So I'm not sure that the EPA is going to be very successful in getting somebody else to pay for this. But if we get on the national priorities list, and this is the reason we're bringing it on the agenda tonight, is because the governor is now taken a step forward to, put his weight behind getting the federal government to put us on the national priorities list, which was EPA's intent anyway. So it's, partly governmental, partly regulatory, partly political. But the purpose of our discussing it tonight is to determine whether or not we should pass a resolution that basically it's a good idea to get the river cleaned up. And we join in Governor Baker and asking to expedite and facilitate this eligibility appointment to the priorities list. Arthur, you can probably, weigh in on this because you've got a different perspective or an additional perspective from the select board's point of view.
John, I think you said it really nicely. I think a motion from the Milton Conservation Commission supporting the endorsement from the Baker administration on this project would be in order.
Right. Anybody know anything else about this? I don't know, Wendy, in your experience on the North River, whether or not you've had any exposure to this kind of, cleanup push?
I haven't, but I know from learning about other projects across the nation that this is a really great thing, and I'm excited to vote in favor of it.
John, Steve Ibis here.
Yes.
The Naval Air Station in South Weymouth was placed on the national priority list back in about 1997. It's still on the list. It's received, I don't know, somewhere between $100 million and $200 million for cleanup work.
Oh, really? Wow. I thought you were going to say they're still waiting for the money. That's great.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah, I was afraid of that too.
They've done a wonderful job with Navy oversight, believe it or not, and subcontractors. It's amazing how much work has been done there.
Well, that's good news.
John,
Yes.
what I would suggest in supporting the notion of a resolution is that the resolution be copied to Milton's Select Board, to the Neponset River Watershed Association, and to the city of Boston, because we in the city are on both sides of this very important project. And for them to know of our support of this, I think would be very important.
I agree wholeheartedly. I'm with you 110%. So any other comments or suggestions, or is there a motion for us to pass a resolution to support the Baker administration's request to expedite and facilitate the appointment of Milton and Boston to the national priorities list for the cleanup of the Neponset River?
So moved.
All right, is there a second? Todd seconded.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And then when we get this all typed up, Steve, will you just make a note in the minutes that we will forward this to the Boston Conservation Commission, NEPRA, the Neponset River Watershed Association, and who else? We should, send it to DCR.
Our Select Board.
Oh, of course, the select board. That's the first place it would go. But I'm thinking of outside agencies and forward it to the Baker administration, obviously.
Yep.
Got it. Yep.
Good. All right, any additional business?
Mr. Chairman, I have two, if I may.
Yes, sir.
The first is relative to 650 Pleasant Street.
Yes.
The homeowners are seeking a statement from the town indicating that they can go ahead with their project.
Do we know if has anybody confirmed that DEP actually received our signed order of conditions? If you don't know, that's what the issue is, that we issued an order of conditions, what, in May?
Like that.
And for some reason, DEP said, no, you can't do that because the homeowner, the applicant, had not produced the elevations for the floodplain.
Compensatory storage, John.
Right, but that's what it translates to, but don't you have to come up with the elevations for the floodplain? Is that
That's
how you
correct.
calculate it?
Yes, yes.
All right, and they hadn't done that. And then there was a lot of back and forth between the homeowner, the Mr. and Mrs. Eden, and DEP. And then it looked like DEP said, well, first they said you have to get the compensatory storage calculations that you derived from the floodplain elevations. And then they eventually said, I guess, that as long as the town approved it, then DEP would go along with our approval. This is all for the addition that they wanted to put on. It was a small addition, didn't increase the impervious surface by very much, and there was a deck that was on sonotubes. So it didn't really affect the impervious surface to any great extent. So we did approve it. But the last holdup that we had, or they had, was that DEP claimed that they had not received our signed order of conditions. And then we went back and double checked and we made sure everybody signed it. And I believe we forwarded it to DEP. It has to be at least 3 weeks ago. Steve, do you know whether or not they've received it?
I do not. I'm sorry.
All right, Arthur, and I know how frustrated Mr. and Mrs. Deeden are, and I understand completely why. But the last time that there was communication that we had, when I say we, I think I had written back and forth. I know I wrote back and forth several times with the Deedens, and with, it's the same woman, isn't it, Alicia Geelan?
Yes.
And the last communication that I had from her, which is probably 10 days ago, was that she had not yet received our signed order of conditions, which was probably 10 days after I thought we had signed it. And that's probably 10 days ago now. So Arthur, as frustrating as it is for them, I don't think there's any way around this other than to call Alicia Geelan and say, do you have it? And I will be glad to do that tomorrow morning.
Thank you, John. I'll convey that to them on your behalf if that's acceptable to you.
Yes, of course.
Okay. The second, and by the way, I did check with Kathy today on this, just so that you know, and she had not received anything about that property from DEP as of today.
Yeah, but I don't think they were going to send anything.
Okay.
According to Alicia Geelan, she was, this has been translated a few times, but she was okay with the town's approval as long as she had it in writing, which was our signed order of conditions, and she claimed that she didn't have it.
Okay, and she hasn't acknowledged this, then that she got it.
Yes, that is.
So that Steve will, so that will be the follow-up tomorrow.
Sure.
The second item for additional business pertains to an Eagle Scout candidate who seeks to have as his Eagle project the replacement of the billboard at Pope's Pond. You had suggested an RDA, which I have forwarded to Philip, and I put him and Kathy in contact. They have one another's information. As of today, she had not yet heard from him about the RDA, but when I contacted her, John, she asked if, since this was a replacement of an existing billboard, if that came under maintenance. His original project was a replacement billboard and a new billboard. The neighborhood, as I understand it, only wants a replacement billboard. So will he need an RDA for the replacement billboard, or is that, as Kathy asked, a matter of maintenance?
Well, just so that everybody has the history, I don't think it's next to Pope's Pond. I think it's down near the bridge from Parkway Crescent to the lower ball fields at the high school. And on the Parkway Crescent side is where the existing sign is. The second new sign was to go at the end of Elm Street, maybe? It's on the Canton Avenue side of the brook as opposed to the Parkway Crescent or, you know, Audubon or Houston Ave side. So I guess some of the neighbors opposed it, putting in a new one, at which point the Eagle Scout, is it Philip Tron?
Fine, yes.
Withdrew that. So you're right, that did change it. So when I talked to Kathy, I said the only issue is that if it's just maintenance, if he's, you know, fixing the sign, not a problem. That's maintenance. But if he's putting in new foundations, we just went through this with the Little League. And we,
Right.
they were putting sonotubes into the wetlands, actually. But we insisted that they do it. So I think to be consistent, I support wholeheartedly the Boy Scouts, just as I do the Little League. But they had to file theirs was a notice of intent that we just did within the last, 5 or 6 months. So if he's going to replace, put sonotubes in and, basically alter it's next to the bank or it's near to the bank, he would need an RDA. So there are two ways to approach this. If he's not putting in a new base, then he can it would be maintenance. The other thing is that just as we did with 36 Chesterfield, and just as we did with 17 Brookside, we've essentially seen a situation that we called for an RDA after the fact. I know it's a little bit of reverse engineering, but and maybe it's what we call it in Latin, nunc pro tunc, now for then. And so maybe he could do an RDA after the fact if there was some support for him to do it now. And the reason I say it that way is that this Boy Scout is going to age out. He turns 18 in August, and he won't, and you can't do an Eagle Scout unless you do it before your 18th birthday.
Correct.
And when he turns 18 in August, he won't be able to do it. So we either have to give him permission to do the maintenance now, or we could consider allowing him to do an RDA, allowing him to put in, a new base sonotubes. And if he came in after the fact, and then at that point, we could approve nunc pro tunc an RDA.
Okay, and since we have a site walk on Saturday morning, and it's an open meeting, could we not have him bring his plan to us at that time? So that we find out exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. See, when I talked to Kathy, and I told her, make sure you put Mr. Tron on the agenda, which we can do, and we can discuss it. But we can't put an RDA on because he has to publish the RDA. And that takes, you have to get to the Quincy Patriot Ledger, and they have like a 10-day advance notice requirement. So he'll miss that. But yes, we can put him on the agenda for Saturday morning, and we could see him. We could actually see him right after Highland Street because it's fairly close to Highland Street.
Okay.
So why don't we do that? Why don't we put it on the agenda for discussion? We can meet him at the site by the lower bridge by the high school, where it crosses from the high school fields over to Parkway Crescent. And we could discuss it there. So if he could decide between now and then whether or not he wants to do just maintenance sort of above the foundation, or if he wants to do the foundation, then we could consider that on Saturday to see if we could do it sort of, as I said, nunc pro tunc. We could give him permission to go ahead. He'd have to do it at his own risk because somebody could appeal our RDA after the fact, the chances of which are slim and none. I think it's
Okay, so I know they're listening. I can see from the screen, which is good. And I will follow up and indicate our request to have them submit the plan to us after our site walk on Saturday by meeting us at the lower bridge by the high school. So that would be about what, 10 o'clock, John?
Philip might know right now whether or not he can do what I call maintenance, which would not require an application, sort of above ground. But once he goes into the ground, it's clearly an alteration and it would require an RDA. So maybe he could help us out now and tell us whether or not he thinks he can do a maintenance project that would not require an RDA. And again, Mr. Fon, I know I'm using acronyms. An RDA is just a request for a delineation of, a determination of applicability. It's just a term that we use, but it is a formal application. And there's one way to do this without a formal application. There's another way to do it that would require a formal application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just for clarification, because of the time sensitive nature, because his birthday is approaching and the Scoutmaster going to be, on vacation on the last week of his birthday. So if he were to use the existing pole already there and just changing the top part and make it nicer and put in, a screen to protect from weather, the plexiglass on both sides. So he would just modify that and change the roof. So as long as if he use the existing pole, then doesn't need the permission. Is that the correct assumption?
Yes, that's my view, and I suspect that everybody will, I don't mean to speak for anybody. Does everybody agree with that? That would be maintenance?
Yes, I do, John.
So the answer is yes.
So that one way, because I know the neighbor, Miss Bilbao, to feel, be nice if, if we're going to do the repair maintenance, if we can make it a little bit larger, but to make it larger, a little bit wider, then we would be, putting new pole. But if that's the case, because of the time, we still can make a very nice, billboard using the existing pole, which is when I walk by there a couple of times, it's pretty solid. It's just, the frame, the billboard itself that attached to the pole is kind of pretty run down. So that's where he can replacing the top part only. If that's a.
Yeah, as long as you don't touch anything in the ground, you're okay.
Yes.
So maybe that could be one way to do it. And
why don't you think about it and we can meet you on Saturday morning?
Sound good.
All right, and now we're trying to get to 101. I know we told 101 the Ponce Valley Parkway, 10 o'clock. Maybe we could give them a heads up that we'll be a little bit later than that, because we'll probably spend an hour at the Milton Hospital site. And then we'd be very close to, we can go right through the high school and get down to the bridge right near Parkway Crest. That's where the sign is. Am I correct?
Right. It's near 29 Crestway Popson. Yeah.
All right. So
it's about 100 yards or so from the bridge, which was another Eagle project last year when we were repainting it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll meet you there at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning.
Okay. We'll be there early, so we just hang out around there.
Oh, that's perfect.
And I need to know that address again. It was at 29 Parkway Crescent?
Yes, Philip. Is it near 29 Parkway Crescent?
Near 29 Parkway Crescent.
Right. That's the house right in the corner is the address is 29 Parkway Crescent. So it's right in that cul-de-sac.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
All right. That's great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. And Philip, thank you for doing this work. And I want you to know we do support the Scouts generally and especially Eagle Scouts.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you
Absolutely.
Saturday.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Are there any other items for additional business?
Those are the only two, Mr. Chairman.
Steve, anything?
I would like to hold off until Saturday.
Okay.
Just a couple of, some updates, but we can hold them off until Saturday.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Motion to adjourn? Somebody?
Wendy?
You don't want to adjourn? Okay.
Todd?
Thank you.
Second?
Yep. Todd.
Wendy seconded.
Thanks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're in adjournment. Thank you all. Good night.
Night all.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.